following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and hey, get back here! Where do you think you're going with that Rubik's Cube?
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I am Diana.
And I'm Steve.
This week we're going to be, I can't believe we're here, but we're already discussing the season 3 finale of Daryl Dixon. I mean, that went pretty fast, don't you think?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a longer season than it's been. You know, the previous 2 seasons were only 6 episodes. They squeezed in an extra, some would say unnecessary episode, but still there were 7 and it still went through really fast.
No, not someone. We would say.
I would say everyone. I'm pretty sure everyone across the board was like, this was a fun and completely unnecessary episode. But anyway.
It was just a waste of time. It's just like, guys.
Why are you here? So anyway, for this week, we're discussing episode 7, which is the season 3 finale of The Walking Dead. Daryl Dixon. Diskin? There you go. I got all kinds of really good speech problems right now. Title of this week's episode is Solaz del Mar, which is Spanish for we're not going to get any resolution to these stories for at least another 8 to 10 months. Yeah.
Your Spanish is good.
It's been improving, I have to say. I'm really happy with how it's been getting better while we've been watching this show. They've really tapped into a part of me that I linguistically didn't know I had. So thanks. Gracias, Walking Dead Daryl Dixon.
That means thank you.
That means thank you. Before we get into points of the episode and details about the episode, we usually just chat a little bit, rapid fire how we felt about this episode as a whole. I went first last week, so Steve, it's your turn. So what did you think of episode 7, the season finale?
I thought it was, very well made. I just like the quality was just as good as every other episode on this show, and that people know what they're doing, and it was well written, it was well acted, it was well directed, well written, all that stuff. But it was very like by the numbers standard, and this was one of those season finales that was let's focus on tying up all of the threads of the season and really give us nothing about what's coming up. Because that's all they did was they just sort of said, okay, the story in Spain is now done. And I mean the only element at all that they introduced that's different or new is they brought Cadron back.
Right. And he doesn't really qualify as different or new because we've already met him.
We've already met him, but it's like different in like for this season, right? It's going to be, for going into season 4, you have to assume that he's going to do more than just kind of show up in the distance in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
So he's going to be involved with them. So, but that's it though. Other than that, they gave us no breadcrumbs at all as to, they're not on their way to go somewhere. They're not trying to rescue someone. They're not trying, you know what I mean? There was no cliffs to hang off of at all. No, just not even like from a story standpoint of, well, you've taken care of Fetty, but don't forget about Fetty's uncle Bobo, because he's even worse. There was none of that. So on that side of it, I was disappointed because I was really hoping that we would get at least a little tease about what what's coming up. Are they staying in Spain? Are they gonna scoot on down to Portugal? I mean, what are they gonna they give us something? I mean, it's just sort of like, oh, the boat got destroyed. Oh, hey, look at that! It's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just
time to go.
There was nothing else. Yeah. So in that aspect, I was disappointed. I think there was some fun stuff to it, kind of like you said at the very beginning there, or maybe during before we started, that some stuff was really beautifully shot. There was some cool effects work. We had more fire ghouls eating people and things like that. So that was fun and I enjoyed it. But again, I think overall I was probably a little disappointed more than satisfied, because they just really didn't give us any kind of a setup for next year, as to where they're going to go with the show. So what about you? What'd you think?
What's funny is I didn't even think about that part, which is very interesting. I felt more like the part you said before where they hit the numbers on, in order for this to qualify as a season finale, we need to wrap up this, wrap up that. This action has to happen. That action has to happen. Like, whether or not they were successful, we knew that there was going to be a moment with, Daryl and Paz, and Elena and Justina. Whether or not they were successful in getting them back, we knew that confrontation or that confrontational moment was going to happen. It had to, and did they release an image very before the episode showing Justina on the motorcycle with Daryl, so I knew that they had already done that one? Yeah, sure, fine. I already knew that it was going to happen. Plus, it's one of those things where it's like, were they going to fail? Probably not.
Right.
But like you were saying, I didn't even really think about the whole setting up for the next season, because you're right. When season 1 was through, it was, Laurent and Isabel, okay, great, we're on the road and we're trying to get to, I forget the name of the town. The one that was like when the tide went out, you know what I mean? Mont Saint Michel, sorry. We got to get to there. And then, when season 2 was over, it was, we need to get to there, and they were in the channel and, on their way to XYZ. And so it's like this episode ended, and really the only sort of information that we have that will lead us to any kind of conjecture for season 4 is, yes, we saw Cadron, which I have to say is probably one of the most exciting things that I think happened, is that I'm really glad to see him back. I thought he was a great character because I loved the way his character grew and changed. So I'm really curious to see what this incarnation of him will be. And I just thought that he and Daryl had really great chemistry. So I'm looking forward to him being back. So if he's going to be back for season 4, for even part of it, I think that's going to be great. But the only major plot thing that we have is the boat burning. They didn't get anywhere. They didn't go anywhere. And the only things that they did that were like, ooh, you better be careful for next season. Who knows? Was that random, like, Fede disappearing act thing that happened at the very end of the episode. He's there, he's not there, which I thought was kind of random and a little stupid. So yeah, I feel similarly to you, I didn't really hit on the whole not a lot of setup for season 4, although you made a really good point there. But for me, I felt like, hey, to have this be a successful finale, we need to have this event happen. We have to have these two people see each other. We've got to have that happen here and this happen here. Okay, great. And we're going to do all of those things. And they did them. So on paper, it was a decent finale, but it wasn't anything that went like crazy. There wasn't any crazy exciting thing that happened. But there were some technical things that were beautiful. Some of the cinematography, some of the creature stuff, some of the action sequences, super cool. And we'll get into those when we get to like our individual points. But I would say overall, I would feel like it was a good episode. I think that's the distinction. It was a good episode. It was kind of for a finale though. You know what I mean? Like if this was an episode 4, you'd be like, oh, this is cool. I can't wait to see what they do next week. But
Yeah.
that's it. Like, that's the
Right.
season finale, and we're not going
Right.
to see what happens next for another, like, 8 to 10 months, like I was saying.
Next week is like next, August.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So I hope you guys are patient, because it's going to be a bit.
Yeah. So you're saying that when it ended, you thought, wow, that was really good. I really wish they would have had like another episode. And then maybe if they hadn't had an entire episode several episodes ago, that was really kind of superfluous and unnecessary, we could have gotten more into what I really wanted to know. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a very common reaction.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Do I really like the image of Daryl drinking from a little, thermos that has a hippo on it? It's adorable. But did we need a whole episode to get to that image? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
No.
Daryl,
the fandom agrees with me too.
Yeah. Well, certainly our listeners were all pretty much in unison for like, hey, this is really fun. Do we really need this? So
unnecessary. So it was a perfectly fine episode, but it kind of missed the mark in terms of like a finale, I would say. But this show still, if we compare it with the other spin-offs, if we compare it to A Fear or A Dead City, I still think in terms of character development and interesting situations and cinematography and creature effects, I feel like they, for some reason, are just way ahead of, they're ahead of Dead City. And I think obviously they're way ahead of Fear, especially, the end game Fear stuff. But it means that I'm still, even though I was slightly disappointed in this episode, I'm still excited to see how they wrap this up next season, to see how they take this stuff and, grow with it. And, I've been saying for weeks now, I really hope that the finale or the final moments are him being, even if he can't be reunited with Rick, he's got to know by the end of this show that Rick is alive. Because that would be the thing that might make him stay in one place, maybe? Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, because he always said that Rick was his brother, So, I don't know.
Hey, you're my brother.
You're my brother. So that's how I felt about it. I'm curious to see what the listeners thought of it too, and how they feel about it as an episode, and how they felt about it as a finale, and then how did we feel about the whole season as a whole. So we'll chat about a bunch of that stuff. But before we get into our individual points, as always, we always recap the episode description, and then we'll get into the writer and the director of the episode, and those are always Steve's tasks. So, Steve, I'm going to throw it back to you to get started with the episode description.
All right. Well, thanks, Diana. So this week's episode is being brought to you by...
Coming this winter, the greatest competition show of all time. AMC proudly presents Dancing with the Ghouls. Yes, Dancing with the Ghouls, where you can watch the B-level heroes of The Walking Dead compete against each other. Each contestant will be paired up with a special marionette ghoul in the ultimate zombie dance competition. Now, normally, you, the viewer, would have an opportunity to vote on who should advance, but in Dancing with the Ghouls, it all comes down to who doesn't get eaten. This season's contestants include, from the world of The Walking Dead, T-Dog, Lizzie, Simon, Gregory, Beta, Pamela Milton, Sherry. From Fear the Walking Dead, Wes, not Heath, Rabbi Jacob, Ginny, and Isabel. And from the world beyond, Iris or Hope, whichever one we can get to show up, and Silas. So tune in and watch the greatest competition show ever. It's Dancing with the Ghouls, where people dance until they're dead. Dancing with the Ghouls, coming this holiday season, only on AMC.
AMC. After The Walking Dead, yeah, we pretty much got nothing.
Ooh, that AMC, they have high-quality programming of all kinds.
Listen, they haven't really delved into the reality show sort of genre, but if ever there was a subject that needed to be covered in a reality or even a reality competition series, I mean, who doesn't want to see people dancing with ghouls? It'd be great.
I mean, it'd be awesome. And I would imagine that, that Chris Hardwick guy, he's not doing anything, so he could host.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely not doing anything.
He and Marilyn Manson could be the co-hosts.
Yeah, those are great ideas, Steve. You've got a future in programming, let me tell you.
Yeah, I can just see things that other people can't see or would never want to watch. You know what I mean?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah,
that is correct.
I just think the lineup. I mean, whenever you can get T-Dog and Lizzie in the same thing, you got to be doing something right, man. I mean, so
Absolutely.
that would be amazing. So,
all
right.
For sure.
So the episode in question is episode 3.7 of The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, and as has been pointed out, it was the lackluster season finale. And the title is Solaz Del Mar, and our description, and again, our description writers clearly were already thinking about, getting out of the office and getting on with their lives, because we got us a one sentence where clearly they're just like, what can we say that will be the most vague thing possible? And someone won. I hope they got a really nice set of steak knives or something, because they came up with, our heroes fight to protect the people they love. And that's it. So,
listen, there were two descriptions online. This one was the one that was attached to the episode on AMC. If you go to IMDb, it's worse. It's basically like a generalized description, which I get that. They send out the super general ones for the finale because they don't want to give anything away.
Right.
But we already knew, all you have to do is say, Paz and Daryl arrive in Barcelona trying to, trying to rescue Elena and Justina. Meanwhile, Carol deals with the fallout of Antonio, da-da-da-da.
Oh my God.
It doesn't tell you what's going to happen, it just tells you.
You have a career in episode description writing. That was brilliant.
Clearly. I should have just wrote it.
You should have.
Instead of stealing it from others.
I know. See, now, if you could just get over the laziness, then you would have something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right. Anyway, moving on.
All right. So, our writers and our director, because I know that is a thing we always like to talk about right at the top of the episode as well. And I'll just save time. It's the same people from pretty much the whole season, that we've talked about a bunch. Our writers were Jason Richmond and David Zabel. David Zabel, showrunner. Jason Richmond, executive producer. Watch any I think of 5 of the other episodes if you want to get the breakdown of stuff they've done, but that's them. And then our director was Daniel Percival again. So and again, what did he direct? Maybe 4 of the 7 episodes this year. So he clearly was their main directorial choice for this particular season. So that is and Daniel Percival, by the way, also executive producer. So there's that as well.
Yeah.
So that is your writers and your director.
So probably one of the more satisfying cold opens that this season had was the reveal of dun dun dun. It's Kadron, and he has returned.
That sounds like a sitcom. It's Kadron.
He's returned. Follow him on his adventures. So what's great is the way they did the reveal of him, I thought was really well done, because, it's just a figure. There's so many, there's so much going on right now where, Daryl's trying to get to Barcelona, and, they're trying to get Roberto out of Barcelona. They're trying to get Roberto safe, and Antonio might be in trouble, and everybody appears to be wearing a hood or hiding their whatever. So when they show him from behind, it really could have been anyone. But then when they show him go up to the statue, and as soon as he goes right in on the Rubik's Cube, immediately I was like, well, who else would? And I was like, oh, no way. And then the camera shifted and they showed his face, and I was like, yes, Kadron is back. What about you? What were your thoughts as soon as they revealed it?
A little similar, I think. Although, in the very first episode of this season, of all the like previously on Daryl Dixon, the stuff they showed, they made a point of showing Kadron in the channel with them. And I mean, they didn't do that with anybody else. So granted, very few people lived, from that season that they could have brought back. But just the fact that they showed him in there, the way television works, the way that we've learned over the years, it's like, well, okay, clearly the previously, whenever there's like some old clip in the previously from like stuff that's like did not happen last week, it's some older clip of the show. It's like they're showing us that for a reason, that they want to remind us that, oh yeah, this person was on the show at one point and played this particular character. And so when they did that, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, so Kadron's going to show up at some point. And then I kind of forgot about it because it didn't happen. And then when we saw him there, and then as soon as he like took the hood up and stuff, I'm like, okay, here we go. Yep, that makes sense.
There it is.
So and again, I was excited too because I like that character, and I think Bat Guano, notwithstanding, they seem to be at least allies at the end of last season. So I don't think he's like, I must kill the American. I don't think he's going to be that guy anymore. I think he's gonna be someone that's going to join the team and help out, which I think will be fun. So I was excited about that. But kind of like we were just talking about, even that was just sort of like, oh, okay, well, Kadron's back. Cool. It just wasn't. It wasn't like this like huge shock. It's not like suddenly like Alpha comes out of the is the one picking up the Rubik's Cube and you're like, what? It was nothing like that. So yeah, I was not, I guess, completely blown away or surprised by it because of that little flashback clip. But I'm glad to see him, and I wish they would have done more with him in this episode.
Agreed, which I'll get to that at the end. I was excited to see him, and yes, they covered him at that in that preview salon way in the beginning, but it just didn't click with me, and I honestly, I had forgotten all about it when we got to here, and I at this point had sort of given up on us ever seeing him again, especially since. How would he know that they were in Spain?
Well, see, there's so many questions, right? So many questions.
Right. Many questions, which, we'll get to. And some stuff, I think, has some answers, but other stuff are still kind of vague. So we'll get there. Well, I agree. But
the biggest thing I have is like, okay, did he... Because when they're in the channel, there's only two ways you can go, right? There's only two directions, right? You either... He either... And when he has this little freak out in the end of season 3 and is seeing his brother and goes chasing after him, it's really not clear which direction he's headed. I always assumed he was heading towards England, to the part they had not gone to yet on the tunnel.
Right.
But obviously, well, I don't know, because it's either he went to England and then he somehow found a way to go from England to Spain.
Right.
Okay. Or he turned around and went back to France, but then still had to get from France, all the way south to Spain. So clearly, there's a story there, right? There's going to be some interesting, development, unless they ask him how he got here, and his response is, it wasn't easy, or, and then that's it. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, you got to give us more than that.
Right.
But, yeah, so you're right. It's like there's a lot, when you see him and he's in Spain and he's in that part of Spain, you're like, wow, how did that happen? You got to throw us a little bit more than just showing him here,
Yeah, agreed. So again, if a good finale should raise questions that you want answered, and I agree, there are some questions that have been raised by seeing Kadron, but I'm not sure that they're the kind of exciting finale questions that you're looking for. I think if the Kadron stuff was paired with a bunch of other things that were like, ooh, I can't wait to see how they deal with XYZ. Also, what the hell with Kadron? If that's the only thing where you've got a lot of questions, still, like we said, not a super successful episode as a finale. So yeah. But yes, I appreciate that there are questions, and I am looking forward to having some of those answered. Here's hoping. So yeah. Yeah, so anyway, so we get back from the credits, and we did it. They're in Barcelona. They made it. Or no, I'm sorry, not Barcelona. They're in where Alcazar.
Alcazar.
My bad.
I'm gonna say, like, weren't they in Barcelona?
That was last week. My bad. Daryl and Paz have made it, and they're they have their moment where it's like, is that it? And oh my god, it's so big, and it's really beautiful from far away. It's all the one thing we've always agreed on with this series is the filming locations that they choose. First they started with some of the beautiful filming locations in France, and they didn't use England for the London stuff because they were there for such a short period of time. A lot of they filmed in Spain and had like stuff stand in, as I'm using air quotes here, London.
Oh yeah, they were never in London. They filmed all in Spain.
All of the like towns and architecture and things for being in Spain have just been beautiful. Just like when they were in Paris, it is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful there. So that's like one of the positive things about these sort of opening scenes is Daryl and Paz. First they're at this sort of like some kind of like vista where they can sort of see in the distance like the buildings that they we need to get over there and blah blah blah, and it's really cool. They've got a really nice little scene there, and Paz has a couple of really good quotes with Daryl, and you wrote down at least one of them there. So let's chat about that scene with Paz and Daryl before they move on.
Yeah, because they kind of get there, and they're they kind of see in the distance, like you said, like the palace or whatever the main building is that the king lives in, and there's like people who work for Alcazar are like trying to round up people to come work the evening, be like servants and stuff and servers and things, because they got this big matching thing where they take all of the ofrenda women who have, and I'm gonna use air quotes here, won the ofrenda, and they're they're gonna be like auctioned off to these kind of douchey Spanish noble type guys who just like want to get like another side piece or something, and so they need, and it's going to be a big posh event, so they're like this turns out to be their way to like sneak in, and I used air quotes there when I said sneak. But before they get there, Paz is kind of she has like a little flashback where like we see like the princeling like stab her, and it's really weird because I was going to ask you about this because clearly Paz is she has like a real short haircut, so to make her look, I'm just going to again use air quotes, younger, and so this is clearly like happened in the past. And she's all bloody and she's on the ground, and then he comes up and you hear the sound of like the sword running through flesh, so he like stabs her. And my question is, do you think that like that was like him like going for like her reproductive area so she can't ever have kids, because he doesn't stab her up high?
I don't know. I think I didn't read that much into it. The only thing I really got out of that scene, first of all, was that even though he's a little cloudy, it's clear that it's the El Alcazar, like the prince guy, the one that's with Elena.
Yeah.
So the thing that I really got from that scene was with her shorter hairstyle. I feel like, because we've had this conversation about why is she not a part of the ofrenda, and I'm wondering if she was doing the Furiosa thing, or there's a character in Game of Thrones who did the same thing, where in in times of crisis, it's sometimes safer for a woman to live as a boy. And she already knew she was in love with Elena, and one would assume it wasn't clear, but she made it seem like she was really close with those folks that were in the little rebel community. So there may have been the hint of some other relationship that was there as well. So it may have just been simpler for her to live as like sort of outwardly presenting as male. And so that's what I took from the short haircut, was like maybe she was outwardly presenting as male, and so she has never been a part of that tradition because she's always been I'm using air quotes here, a cowboy, you know. So I don't know. That's the only thing I really got out of it. I didn't even really notice. I knew she was injured, but it didn't hit me how the injury was going. So no, I didn't make any sort of assumption out of that. But that if that's where she was, I mean, that's certainly possible, because actually when you consider who it is that injured her, here's this guy who is so mad that she wanted to be with his woman that it's like he's, you know, it's almost like a lot of revenge was in that gesture, in that stab that he did. So, I mean, could that have been part of his motivation? It's possible. It's totally possible.
I was going for the idea of this is why she's not in the ofrenda, is that he makes it so she can't have little princelings and princesses. And so that means she is not eligible.
Yeah, no, that's possible too. Very possible.
So again, it like you said, it's kind of, you know, they have that kind of hazy lens look to it, so it's not crystal clear and focused, and it's, you know, they do it like a memory type thing, so it's not very specific. So we don't really see what he's doing and what's happening to her, but other than you do, like I said, you do hear the sound of like, you know, a blade, you know, stabbing someone. But it's like, well, she clearly didn't die, and he clearly didn't do it like in her chest or, you know, up by her face. So I don't know. It was very weird. But anyway, so she's sort of recounting this story about how she, you know, the last time she was here, she tried to rescue Elena, and it did not go well. And then she basically, you know, said she lost hope and so on. And then of course, you know, she met, you know, Daryl showed up, and then she started to dare to dream, right, that things could be different. And I think also the fact that Elena came to Solaz rekindled a lot of that passion for her as well. And she looks at Daryl and says, you know, I didn't come all this way to give up again. And Daryl looks at her and goes, I figured.
Man of few words, obviously.
that is Daryl. Yeah, that's Daryl. Like, okay, I got you, kid. So they end up volunteering. They put all their guns in the trunk and just leave it because, you know, no one will open that trunk. And they volunteer to be servants for this big, you know, event, the matching event that's going on that night. And that's kind of their in to get into the palace and, you know, start all the intrigue. So I wrote down another line then too, that when they get there, all of the servant people are given these masks to wear that are kind of very like featureless masks. They're just white basically, and they have no expression or anything. And I believe only like the half mask, because like I think their mouths are exposed, so you could talk, you know, without it being obstructed. So and he kind of gives her the funny look, and she just kind of says casual or kind of in a whisper, so they don't have to look the workers in the face. Is the reason why. And I'm just like, oh my God, kill all of them now. You know, it's just.
I thought it was really interesting that the masks too, what they really reminded me of with the featureless thing is they reminded me a lot of those like masks used in the V for Vendetta. So it had a real it has a real, you know, these are the masks they're giving to, like, you know, the regular people so they don't have to look at faces.
Right.
And they've chosen a design that just screams revolutionary, you know, which I just thought was a really interesting sort of like, that's a choice.
That's a bold choice.
Let's say bold.
Yes.
The best part of one of the best parts of the whole episode gets done in like the first few minutes of the episode. As soon as we get to, you know, we get Paz and Daryl there in this room where this ceremony is going to happen, and they are, you know, at the edges of the room and they're filling wine glasses and whatever as this, you know, big ceremony is about to come off. Then like there's entertainment. So they open up the curtain, and then at first it's hard to figure out, like, what's going on here? And then it's like, oh, okay. And in Dead City, we saw the ghouls on stage for kind of a performance where they were, like, playing instruments, but they were more like, they were kind of manipulated. And this is similar, but better. They are, like, full-on marionettes, and they did a full scene. They have puppeteers up above that are like doing the moving the limbs and having them, you know, the only reason you would even know that these were ghouls was because they were during the whole thing, and it was pretty cool. I thought that it was really interesting visually, and that it was super effective. What did you think of our ghoul marionettes?
Well, first thing is do we have to call them Guppets?
I don't know. Maybe.
Because, you know, they're kind of like ghoul and puppets, kind of like Mop and puppets made Muppets. You know, we get ghouls and puppets, we get Guppets. I don't know. It was a really, really impressive visual, but it's like, oh, dude, did we get another thing off of the wouldn't it be cool list here?
Yeah.
I mean, I just logically and, you know, from a common sense standpoint, why would you ever do that? You know what I mean? It's just it's just like, no, you don't, no, you don't have, you know, the zombies that close to, not just like people in the town, but like the king and queen are like 2 feet away from them. It's like, no, you don't do that.
It's
okay,
fine.
I mean, oh yeah. So, but again, it was a super great visual, and they were all kind of almost. My thought was like, this should have shown up in like last season, because they had a very French Revolution kind of costume theme going on. You know what I mean? And so, you know, like the one woman who like smacks the ghoul, who smacks the other, like, you know, ghoul with her scepter, and then the crown comes down on her head, and, you know, and very, very Marie Antoinette looking kind of a thing. I mean, so that was like a weird kind of like, okay. And I'm not up on the Spanish monarchy, and like, did they also dress like the frogs did? I don't know. So you know what I mean? So but it just it really, the whole thing, it was so ridiculous. I literally was like, oh, did somebody you know, Zabel cross something off of his list again? You know, right below the train pulled by the ghouls, it was the, you know, we'll have the dancing marionette ghouls, you know, okay, you know, but again, it was, I mean, it's clearly something we've never seen before. And the closest being, you know, it's either in season 2 or season 3, when they found that crazy dude in Paris who had like all the ghouls, like you said, like playing the you know, the orchestra stuff. Or was that in Dead City? I'm trying to remember what show. What show was that?
Was,
where we had that, where they found the guy.
That was Dead City.
I thought it was in this show.
No,
right?
It wasn't.
Was it Dead City?
So, yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, whenever that happened, that was kind of the closest we've gotten, you know, to this sort of like, we're having the ghouls, you know, be, you know, try and like act out like as humans, you know, short of like the princess tableaus or something, right? You know, that was but those were like much smaller. I mean, here you had, what would you say, there was like maybe 10, 12 ghouls on stage that trying to do the dance and all that?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was a small amount. It wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, but you're right. I mean, it was just super interesting and bizarre, and you're the whole time though, I was just sort of like, oh, this is just not going to end well. I mean, even if Daryl's not there, this is just a bad idea. Literally, it's the 28 days later, like, you know why this is such a bad idea? Because it is obviously a bad idea. But anyway, that's what they did. And of course the crowd, which you really get the sense, like the sense that like the crowd is like the 1%ers of Spain.
Oh yeah, without question.
They're like the nobles. They're like the people that aren't in the royal family, but they're like connected to it or something. And so you get all these rich folks together, and of course all the poor people are serving and doing that, and they can't even show their faces. That's how little respect the nobles have for them. So they hit a lot of hot buttons there. With the whole culture and thing.
I think it'd be interesting to see, like, this season was the first time where we feel like that there were moments where they had a list of, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this on this series? Between like the ghouls pulling the train, etc. There were a handful of things that were like, really? Like, are we like you said, trying to check something off a list? I'm wondering if those moments in previous episodes hadn't happened, would that marionette scene have hit a little bit differently, I wonder. Yeah, maybe. But I still think, like you were saying, the stuff, like, it's such an obvious depiction of class and the haves and the have-nots and etc. So I still, like, visually, first of all, it looked really cool. But when you look at the practicality of it, who is strapping down a ghoul to put like the white powdery makeup on their face and stuff like that?
Right. You know what I mean? How'd you like to have that job?
Well, it wouldn't matter because it'd be one of the faceless, underlings who would do that. Nobody that was seated in the inside of that, celebration had anything to do with that.
Right.
But I think too, one of the other things I thought was cool is, the haves and the have-nots. There's a lot of class stuff going on there, but it's also, and we saw this handled in the Commonwealth a bunch, which is there's this whole, once you get to a certain time where people have not been exposed to the dangers for quite some time, then there's like a lackadaisical sense, like it couldn't possibly hurt me, like that kind of air of like superiority. And I feel like that was on display as well, where the people that were there had this whole, I know either you or someone else made a comment about, them sitting with their backs to everything, but it's like they would do nothing different because they would never think that something like that would ever happen, would ever deign to happen to them, because they're way too important for something bad to happen to them. So it's interesting because it just shows an arrogance that exists with people that aren't exposed to the dangers on a day-to-day basis like Daryl and Paz are. So it was interesting. Very, very interesting. So let's talk a little bit about this ceremony / celebration they're doing, which they call the matching. And my feeling on the whole thing was, once everything is, they talk about it, and then when they finally get the girls up on stage, and then it becomes clear how it's going to work, it's like, if memory serves mathematically, there's 5 girls and there's 3 guys to select girls, and then whatever 2 are left over, they'll end up in a life of servitude, like maids and cleaners and stuff like that, like the shit labor, pretty much. And so they get up on this like little platformy stage, sort of round stage, so they can be seen from all angles. And then when the men come up to like make their decision, and they pick a flower that matches the same color as the flower that the woman is wearing in her hair, or the young girl, whatever. And I just couldn't help but see like the similarities to the reality show The Bachelor. because that's exactly how The Bachelor chooses the women that will go to the next episode. Is he gives them a rose, and that's how they know. And they call it the rose ceremony. Is that, if you've never watched an episode of The Bachelor, that's that's how he chooses. Is there's 12 girls, and every episode he gives out one less rose than there are girls. So that first ceremony, those 12 girls, he hands out 11. Whoever doesn't get a rose, they go home. But unfortunately, in this instance, these girls do not get to go home. They have to stay and be slaves, pretty much, to the El Alcazar sort of royal family, or it's pretty sad looking. So I thought it was interesting. It was very reality show, very Bachelor. And I also thought that the imagery of the whole handing out of flowers is interesting because there's a lot of talk about, like, they do this so that they can further the human race. So clearly there's a lot of, we want them to have babies is basically what we're doing here. And
Yes.
So, like, the flower themselves, it gives a real sort of obvious, deflowering sort of imagery. So I just thought that was an interesting choice, was using the flower there as the thing that chooses the girl that's going to move on. So that were my thoughts. What were your thoughts on the ceremony?
Yeah, kind of very similar. I if you notice, the girls are all color coordinated with the
Yes.
flowers. Justina's flower is the white one, although I would really like to see what the rules of the matching are, because she clearly, like, lets her hair down, and, like, that might, none of the other girls were allowed to do that, and I don't think that was fair. She's trying to, like, get a little advantage by having the long hair down. So it could have been a disqualification right there, I think, if we were, up on what the actual rules of the game are. But yeah, you're right. I mean, everything you said, you certainly have the deflowering image in that, these kind of douchey guys come up and kind of smugly, look over, like, the lobster they're gonna pull out of the tank, right? And then they, go over and take the color coordinated, flower, or, the posy, and be like, oh, I picked you, and hey, come with me, young lady, and off you go, and and you're, like, you're throwing up in the back of your mouth a little as this is all going on, for these poor girls who, let's be honest, Alba was, 16, 17 maybe.
Right.
And she's being forced to do this, it's just like, oh, this is really icky. So, you have that whole element in there. And then, of course, you have, Daryl and Paz are sort of, like, in the background looking for their opening, trying to figure out how they're going to get in and do it. And we get, I think we did get the scene before that where Elena is, like, talking to Justina, and Justina's like, so if I don't get picked, will I get to go home? And out in the courtyard are, like, these two women that are, like, scrubbing the floor with, like, literally, like, on hands and knees with, like, a brush, and they're kind of looking out the balcony at them and sees them down there, and Elena's like, not exactly, said if you don't get picked, you'll basically be one of them. And then she goes, or worse, which, kind of tells me, it's like, yeah, we're going to send you to the brothel. What I mean? And of course, right when that happens, one of the guards comes in and starts yelling at those girls, and you hear him out in the distance, and they go and look, and, obviously he's beating one of the women and tells them, move, you cow, rah, and so it's just very, very, convenient that she sees that, like, oh, those girls over there, they have a really shirty life. You don't want to be one of those girls, and so my takeaway on it is, with the matching, it's sort of like, first place, you get to hook up with some random, Spanish douchebag. Second place, you get a set of steak knives, and third place is a career as a maid.
Yes. I'm mostly interested in the steak knives.
That is the best outcome right there.
Right.
Yes, you hope you get that. So, but yeah, it was. I mean, there were what? There were 5 girls up on the stage.
I
Is
think
that
so,
it? And 3 of them were chosen.
Because I distinctly remember there being 2 that were taken away. And I felt bad because the one of the girls that was taken away was the one who was in the transport with
the
Justina.
cage. Yeah.
And if they had been successful, she would have been able to have been freed. And Justina, at the last second, she knew she'd never be able to escape as the maid, but as a chosen one, she would, and you could see her make that decision, and that's when she took her hair down to sort of give herself an edge, and it worked, because she got picked. But yeah, one of those 2 girls was the one that was in.
Was the other one?
So when they showed her, I was like, oh, these poor girls, and one of them is the girl from the truck. So yeah, this is really sad and tragic. Yeah. So good.
Yeah. I did like it a little bit later on when the chaos has started and Daryl runs and he's looking for Justina, and he goes and he kind of is on a balcony similar, and he looks down and those 2 girls are like down below that balcony, and she looks up and she sees him, and he's taken his mask off by this point. So you get to see his well-washed hair and all not in his face, right, because it's Daryl Dixon. And she recognizes him, and he looks down and sees her, and they kind of have that little eye contact moment, and I was kind of hoping her reaction would have been a little bit bigger, but you get the sense where she's just like, oh, everything's cool now. We're going to get out of here in like 2 minutes. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, we're good. All right. Because the cavalry is now here, because that dude is going to freaking kill everybody here.
Of course. He definitely gives off those vibes. So we've got all this excitement happening. Well, at least not excitement, not yet. Daryl hasn't, lit the match, as it were, just yet. But there's a lot of tension, and you're nervous about what's the next thing. So what are we going to do? We're going to not finish this scene, and we're going to go back to Solaz Tomar.
We kind of passed over. There's a bit in the beginning before all this where Carol is talking to Roberto at the boat. And he's still pissed off at his dad, right, for lying about his mother. And then she talks with Valentina, and she's like, Antonio was supposed to be here. He's supposed to join. He's going to sneak out at night. And, of course, Valentina is like, well, it's only been a little bit. Give him some time. And already Carol's like, no, something happened, because he called out Fede in public. Yeah. In order for me to get away. And she's like, Fede's not going to let that go. And so she's like, clearly they have him. So she's like, I got to go save his ass. So she, leaves, and we find out Valentina lets her borrow, the 2 dudes that she has, at the lighthouse with her. And so from for a little while during the episode, like you said, they're kind of cutting back and forth between the 2 stories. And so we get a little bit of Daryl and Paz, doing their thing and the matching, and then it cuts back and we get Carol, and she, approaches the town, and she, she's like hiding in the back of the truck, and like they sneak her in, and then it cuts back to the stuff at the gathering, and then it cuts back to Solaz, and we see that they bring Antonio out into the public square. And I think doesn't like Fede's mom like come in and be like, people are talking.
Yeah, they have a whole scene.
The rumors are spreading and all this stuff. And so he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, do something decisive. Yeah. And so he like brings out Antonio, and they put him in that like thing where they like which they did to the guy that kind of started yelling at the Alcazar in the very beginning of the series, where like he's like, where's my daughter? Right. And so they like tie his hands behind his back, and then they tie the rope onto his arms, and they lift him by his arms above the ground in that like weird contraption. And that's what they do to Antonio. And they're literally like, you're not coming down until you tell us like what's Dixon doing?
Right.
Where is he? What's going on with him? And so they just like leave him. And of course the whole town square is kind of watching. All the people are like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, and all that. And so we kind of get these two storylines going. So Carol is going on this cockamamie rescue mission while Daryl and Paz are trying to do their own rescue mission and get Elena and Justina out of the Alcazar building. So that's where we are. So just wanted to kind of catch everybody up. So continue.
Yeah. So Carol actually shows up, and and it took a little bit because they decide to sort of, they actually are watching from afar as they string up Antonio. She almost runs out, and like one of Valentina's guys was like, no, but he's translating everything that Fede is saying while he's stringing him up, and she gets all, because obviously Antonio's in a lot of pain because of the angle he's at, and he's being hung by like his wrists, but like they're behind his back, and he's hanging that. It just looks really painful. It's like a medieval torture device, for crying out loud. So they wait until the cover of darkness. So I think it sounds like that's a smart idea, but even though it's dark, he's still right in the middle of the square. And you made a good point about that. I didn't have anything about this in my notes because Carol was just driving me crazy. Because she just runs foolhardily into things. But yeah, so she and the guys try to, head over to approach Antonio, and it's like, yes, it's dark out, but it's fairly well lit. They keep torches out all night long, and they clearly exhibited that people look out the windows to watch what's happening in the town square, and it's not like they were quiet about it or anything. You know what I mean? I still don't understand why they cranked instead of just putting the two guys underneath him and cutting the rope. I don't understand why they did it that way. Because as soon as they started cranking and it was like, I'm like, really? We're doing this?
Yeah. The whole thing, it was just the dumbest plan, one of the dumbest plans ever. That like Carol's strategy is, okay, now that like they clearly are completely not paying attention, we're going to walk right down the middle of the square, right up to the thing that's in the middle of the square, and just make as much noise as possible, cutting him down. So that we can somehow get away, and then she's like, and I'm sure those two guys are like, really, that's the plan? And she's like, yeah, it's totally gonna work. They'll never say, oh wait, they know we're here. I mean, that's literally what it was. You know what I mean? And so they get into this firefight, and she and Antonio kind of get separated from the other two guys, and who I just would refer to as, clearly they put their red shirts on before they left the lighthouse. Because as soon as that happened, I'm like, yeah, well, those guys are dead.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, yep, they're not gonna make it. And so Antonio and her, they kind of like somehow they slip away, but the other two guys don't. And then they're kind of moving down a street, and out of just what are the odds, they come upon Alba and her mom, and they let them come into their house to hide.
Yeah.
And kind of give them a little shelter, a little protection. And we should point out that Antonio's been like strung up by his arms for, what would you say, hours?
At least a few
maybe?
hours.
I mean, a long time. Yeah, and it's clear too that like they worked him over because he's got a black eye and bloody lip and blood coming out of his nose. You know what I mean? They beat on him a lot, so he's in a bad shape. So they're like, look, we need somewhere for him just to kind of rest and recover just a little. So, but anyway, so they do. They find a place to kind of lay low for a while and figure out what they're gonna do. While the two guys from the lighthouse are just kind of left to fend for themselves. And yeah, you guys aren't gonna make it anyway,
they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very sad.
Yeah.
That was the other thing too I didn't like about that was it felt like he bounced back from being hung from his arms.
Boy, did
really
he.
Quickly. And it'd be one thing if Roberto had like been able to bounce back, because he was in like a very similarly hung position when he was hung. He didn't, I mean, sure, he was a little more injured, but he's younger. Antonio was older, and he was worked over a little bit, and then he was hung by his arms behind him, backwards, yada yada, and he was fine. He was fine. He just needed to be in the presence of Carol, who is his one true love.
Yeah, and not only was he fine, and that's very funny. Yes, it's his one true love. Not only is he fine, he brings her tea because she is so exhausted from the walking she did for that day that she's asleep. And he's like, "Hey, sleepyhead, do you want some tea?" And she's like, "Oh, with lemon." And he's like, "See." And then she's like, "Oh, with milk." And she's like, "See." And she's like, "Okay." I mean, again, it's adorbs. It's a wonderful little scene between the two of them. But I'm like, shouldn't she be bringing tea to him because he's like on the verge of death?
Yeah, and he was hanging in the cover of darkness. She had to wait for the cover of darkness to be able to go and save him, and that took a lot of mental ability.
Oh, I'm
sure.
She
was
absolutely
very
draining.
mentally exhausted in that moment, and sleeping on what was probably the only other soft surface within the house, and she's got it, but not him. So I clocked that, and I was like, really, Carol, you're gonna take that from the guy that has been, he came to bat. You're alive because he did all that proclaiming in the town square in front of Fede, and Fede was basically like, "Oh God, let her go. I need to deal with this bullshit." You know what I mean? And so she was able to get away, and his son was able to get away because of his actions. So she's like, "Oh, I'm tired. I'm gonna go ahead and lay down here. Can you bring me some tea?" Anyway, but yeah, that drove me nuts. So we go back to the ceremony area, and things are about to go down, because Daryl was just basically saying to Paz, he's like, they need to find their way in, like, what are we gonna do? And he's like, I don't know, I'm working on it is what he said. And so he's like sort of looking around and trying to figure out an opportunity for like something to do, to like, whether it's to do something to someone or create some kind of a distraction. He's just trying to figure out like, what's the plan? And in true Rick fashion, he doesn't have one. He's like, that's my brother. He never made a plan in his life that worked. So his plan is actually, I'm not gonna lie, it's actually kind of cool, that he decides to, basically he lets the marionette ghouls loose.
Yes.
And the scene where he does it is hilarious. I only have one nitpick with that. I know you have a separate one. My nitpick is, so you're telling me that there isn't some schmo like who was supposed to untie them and take them away, unless they kept them there because they're gonna do like some second performance. Act two happens while they're having dessert.
They're just an intermission. Yeah.
Maybe.
Come on. You just don't understand how these things work.
I obviously don't understand how theater works. Clearly.
Yeah. See, the problem is they were lacking a proper SM.
Yeah, that's what it was.
At this particular facility, because there was no one to be like, all right, ghouls, take 5, and the ghouls would go, thank you, 5. They didn't have that person there. Yeah. The only thing we get is the guy who's in the closed captioning is credited as Overseer.
Yeah.
Who confronts Daryl when he goes back there. But yeah, it's like they make no attempt at all to put these ghouls in a more area where they can't eat people, right? They just, it's literally the curtain comes down and then all the operators and stuff are like, well, we're done, let's go. So yeah, they're all still there. And so Daryl like sneaks in like that massive switchblade weapon thing he has, and he, you hear it open, and then you hear the sound of like all the ropes being cut. And I thought it was one of the cooler moments was the shot is from out in the dining area where everyone's sitting at the tables, and you see the curtain on the stage, and all of a sudden it starts like the hands start pushing against the curtain, and you're like, oh, that ain't gonna work well for people, you know. And then Daryl must have like opened the curtains, because they open somehow, and the ghouls just spill out onto the unsuspecting crowd. And you know, I like one of my favorite, like, this is like one of my favorite Daryl Dixon like lines ever in the history of the Walking Dead universe, because the overseer comes up to him right when he's back there, and the overseer's like, hey, what are you doing back here? Are you lost or just stupid? And Daryl looks at him, and then his response is a headbutt.
My feeling, like, when I watch that scene, because Daryl clearly doesn't understand like a vast majority of Spanish. He knows a handful of like vocab words. So that when the guy comes up, the overseer, and he's asking like what you said, like, what are you doing here? Are you lost? It's all in Spanish. And Daryl's just like mulling over what to do before he does the headbutt. And to me, it really reminded me of, there's that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where, I mean, the most famous one, when he's confronted with like I just got to get past this, is obviously, you know, the fight with the guy with the big sword, and he just shoots him, and that's funny. But then later on, as he you know, he's prepping to follow them while they're gonna open up the Ark and have the whole ceremony on that like little island, and he is like in the like where the submarine is, and he's hiding, and he basically has like a little bit of clothes on him, but it's like a he's like he killed a guy.
He knocked out a guard and like took his uniform or something. And he's in
the middle of trying to get it on, and clearly he picked like the one petite officer that was right near him. So he's trying to like tighten the shirt, and he can't, like, it's not buttoning. It's like he's got like 6 inches between like the buttons. He can't get it to shut. And another superior officer comes up and is completely in German, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you wearing? And they don't even give you subtitles. You just know that he's basically berating Indy to be like, what is this? And he, like, grabs the edge of his collar and is like, you know, you look terrible, basically. Like, what is this? This is a disgrace.
Comb your hair.
So he takes out a comb and he's combing his hair, and he's trying to, like, smarten up. But this guy is loud, and he's like, and, you know, German is not like a gentle sounding language, so he's like yelling at him in German, and it's getting a little like, and he out of nowhere is like, ugh, and like knees him in like the groin and the gut area, and like knocks him out. Like, he bends over, he hits his head and whatever, and he's gone. But in that moment when he's like, I don't know what to do, and he's speaking in another language or whatever, very similar to me to that moment when Daryl is like, I don't know what he's saying, but I need to do something here before he causes a scene and gets me killed, damn it. And
right. Well, it just blows my cover at the very minimum,
and
right?
It's fantastic. It's just fantastic, because it's obvious, like, he just is like, I'm gonna show physically that I don't give a shit what you just said. I need to do what I'm doing.
Sure.
Now shut up and get out of my way, and I'm going to headbutt you so that this works.
Well, it's like, you need to stop talking now. And so he just and he does. He just takes him out, boom, and the guy's out. And so then he goes and he cuts all the ropes that there are, as we pointed out, this is the only way that they have to secure the ghouls in between acts, right? And so they spill out onto the main dining floor where everybody is, and it's like immediate chaos, but this was one of the parts where, I mean, there was some cool stuff in there, and you definitely saw a lot of ghouls eating people, which was great. But the whole thing, it just seemed way too easy for me, that they, first of all, the Alcazar guy, he just barely escaped with his life in Barcelona. And yet they have no heightened security here at all. And this is like where the king and queen live there are no guards, there are no armed people in, you know what I mean? Even like ceremonial, there are no guards in that room. I'm like, really? And you know, no one's on the lookout. You know, like you would think that they would have told somebody there, like, hey, you know, this American guy who doesn't shower is like trying to kill me. Maybe keep your eye out for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I thought that like this whole thing, you know, I mean, the two of them, the damage that they do in there was, I was just like, really, there's just like nobody there that's armed that can take them on. There's no, you know, and there's no security checkpoints. There, you know what I mean? They just go out and recruit people and say, hey, you want to go, like, you know, hand the queen like a glass of wine? Yeah, sure, go ahead. You know what I mean? It's like, really, there's no vetting at all here. You know, so that struck me as a little too good to be true, you know, sort of like, well, clearly they only got like 42 minutes for this, so they're just kind of cutting through a lot of the red tape and just getting to it, which is fine. The other thing is that once the ghouls spill out onto the floor, the very first person that gets killed is the queen.
Yeah.
Right. And she, you know, she just kind of get this is like this. Well, the thing I observed was, okay, rule number one when dining in the zombie apocalypse is never take a table near the stage. Nope. Okay, that is just bad. People, don't do that. And so this would be like 1A or 1.2 or something would be never ever sit with your back to the ghoul performers. Okay. Just bad idea, bad thought, bad strategies. Don't do it, because the ghouls spill out, they jump out and they kill the queen. And, you know, my first thought was, oh, there's the queen. Well, the queen is dead. Long live the queen. And I think, you know, to really help the dumb Americans that are watching this show out, what the showrunner should have done was, as soon as the queen got a big chunk of her neck ripped out by one of the ghouls, so they should have freeze framed that screen and slid it over, and the other half of the picture should have been Norman Reedus going, "Hi, I'm Norman Reedus," and this is just in his regular voice, not in his Daryl voice, and he goes, "I thought it'd be important to go over the rules of Spanish succession," so that he'd say, when the king is dead, the next person in line of the throne would be the queen. However, now that the queen has been killed, and then he would sort of explain a little bit, because, I mean, we get like 12 royal deaths here in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, to the point where I'm like, so who's now the king? Is it Elena's son who is now the you know, and so she's like the regent and he's like the king in waiting, or I don't know. I don't understand any of that stuff. I don't get it, because, you know, we don't have kings here. Sorry.
Sorry. I know that must have been really hard to, you know, say that word line out loud.
I just never thought I'd have to say that out loud. You know, So anyway, I don't get it. But the queen goes, and then the king gets killed, and, you know, you kind of get this chaos. And I think, doesn't Daryl like pick up like a lantern or something, and he throws it at the curtain, and it, you know, sets it on fire.
Totally.
So you know, and at this point, like I said, it's just pandemonium. People are running for the exits and throwing, you know, turning over tables and just, you know, running in all directions, and, you know, I mean, it's just, it's crazy. Yeah. And so I believe at that point, Daryl tells Paz, "You go find your girl, and I'll go find my girl," and so they kind of split up and go out searching. Yeah. So but. Like I said, it was. What did you think? Did you think it was way too easy?
Well, what it felt like to me was, it didn't feel easy, but it felt like they edited that scene weird. That's how I felt. I felt like, you know, the ghouls killed the queen and the king are sitting right next to the stage, so they die really quickly. So there's that. And remember, we said the thing about, there's an arrogance there. Oh, this can't happen to me. And you were like, there's not a lot of soldiers. There's not a lot of security going on in that room. So all of those factors sort of add to it. But it felt a little bit like, in certain moments, it was kind of in, like, the ghoul attacks on the people were kind of happening in slow motion. Like, they weren't even, like, defending themselves, like putting their hands up or their arms up. Like, it felt very oh, I might as well just fall down on the ground because they're going to kill me, and I hate when, it doesn't look realistic.
It's sort of like, I had a good run.
Yeah, I had a good run. It's time to go. So there was that, but it also felt, as the scene progressed and like after Daryl threw the lantern and set the fire and, then there was kind of like chaos because people are running to and fro. But it was interesting because like, when Daryl finally leaves the room, like the ballroom that this is all happening in, when he leaves the room, there are other people who are leaving at the same time as him that I'm like, they had been in that room for too long. It felt like, why are you just leaving? Like, it felt like those people would be like out the door in 3 seconds. But he did a bunch of things and was doing this, that, and the other, and then finally leaves the room, and people are still sort of leaving a little at a time with him. So I don't know, like it felt weird. And then when he gets outside and gets into like the outside area, as soon as he gets out there, this was after he rescues Justina. After that happens and they're sort of like trying to get away, she ends up saving him a little bit because she gets a couple of kills off that he wasn't prepared for. But like the soldiers come running in, like a couple of security/soldier people. They had like uniforms on. And it felt like, I was like, dude, Johnny come lately. He's already gone all the way upstairs, gotten Justina, come back downstairs, and you guys are just now running into the courtyard? I don't know, it felt like the choreography of the actual the ghoul attack, which is what creates all that chaos. First of all, they've got all this chaos created from what? 10 ghouls? That's it?
Yeah. That's it. Well, yeah, you have to assume the people they eat get up and start eating people.
I guess
but
so,
yeah,
but I'm
right.
just like, to me, I felt like it was a lot of chaos for a small amount of ghouls. And then like later when they're trying to get away because they've succeeded at what they're doing, it's like, okay, now like soldiers and security are now coming in and are fighting people. And why do they attack Daryl? What is it that you see with Daryl that makes it, he could have just been one of the workers like trying to flee a zombie attack, but somehow they clocked that he was, I mean, yes, he had Justina with him, but they immediately attacked him without even really seeing her I don't know. Like the whole thing felt like the someone sat down and wrote out the timeline of everything that was supposed to happen and in what order, and then when they edited it, it's like they took like numbers 2, 6, and 7 and flip-flopped them all, so that all of those things still happen, but the way they cut it together, it just didn't feel as cohesive. Now, that being said, there were some pretty epic, like you were saying, with the queen and then the king, and then with, Paz and Elena saving the day, killing the Guillermo guy, the prince. So the ghoul deaths were pretty epic. And then the death of the El Alcazar is epic. And then to have Paz be able to have her moment, to be like, what's it called? To be like, do you remember me? She got to have her Furiosa moment, which was great.
Right. When he does, because he's like, I remember. Yeah,
and she's like, okay, here we go. I'm gonna stab you now. Great, thanks. Mm-hmm. He was doing some pretty killer eye acting as well. He was very like, oh my god, my eyeballs are too big for my face. I have to just keep stretching my eyes open as far as I can to show that I am, oh my god, I'm going to die. Oh my god.
Yeah. The Spaniards, they're well known for their eyeball acting.
Yes, they were, and he did not disappoint, let me tell you. So yeah, I felt like there was a lot of really great action, great tension, great drama, but I felt like some of the way it was spliced together made some of it feel a little slow in other areas and a little herky-jerky in others. Overall, great rescue scene, but just like it was a little hackneyed here and there. So it was good but not great. Some parts great, some parts not so great. So in the middle, good.
In the middle, yeah.
A little bit in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, technically it was wonderful in terms of, we did get some really gruesome, zombie kills, you ripping, like I said, taking a big chunk out of the queen's neck, and then the way the king went down, and there's some other rando person there that, they clearly rip a whole bunch of their intestines or guts
that was
out
awesome.
of, and so yeah, I mean. So yeah, there was some really fun stuff. It's just I was just like, man, it was, that place is the most undefended, royal palace in the history of the universe.
Yep.
I mean, there was like the one guard that Daryl slashed with his weird switchblade knife thing. When they were trying to move through the dining area at the end. That was it, or maybe there were two, because I think he takes on another one, and then Justina stabs the guy in the back as well, and so they fight together there in that one little instant. But yeah, it's just that kind of took me out of enjoying it more, because it was just like, wow, there's just apparently the Alcazar gave all the guards the night off because they were not there. So but yeah, so that they resolve that, and they do go, and they not only do they rescue the girl that was locked up with Justina, but they get like all of the girls that didn't get chosen. They're all, Daryl's like, come on, we're all going.
We gotta go. We all gotta go. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they get out, and so then after the fact they get back to their motorcycle and their car, and of course Justina has conveniently found a pair of pants, which is great, so she's not wearing the dress anymore, and I think Paz says that, well, I think the safest place to take all of these girls is back to the people that she knew in Barcelona that have their little commune thing set up, right? And so it's going to be her and Elena and the girls, and it's so funny because Daryl's like, long as the kid isn't driving, and it cuts to like to Elena. We find out Elena has a 5-year-old son, which is interesting, and he's sitting in the driver's seat going and turning the steering wheel,
so
like
cute.
you do, adorable, yeah, and so that's what she said she's gonna do, and he kind of thanks her for helping out, and basically says I couldn't have done it without you, and she looks at him and goes, really? And he's like, no, I probably could.
I wondered when that line happened if it was something else, and Norman improv'd I probably coulda, because it was a very Norman reaction and not very Daryl, because he was like playful and he was like smiling and everything, and he doesn't know Paz very, very well. They've only just really bonded on this trip, but they had a lot of other things to do. It's not like they sat around and talked about their feelings and combed each other's hair or anything, but it's he had this like playful moment where he's grinning when he normally wouldn't have that kind of reaction. So it felt like it was a little bit of an improv that got kept in the script, like somehow, or there was something else written there and he changed it up or whatever. But it was cool. It was a funny line, and he played it really, really well. My thought in that scene was that they did a really good job of tying up the Paz storyline, and I'm curious if we're going to see her again, because the way they wrapped it up, they really did it in a way where we don't really have to see anyone there again. But I'm wondering if we will, for whatever reason. What do you think?
I think we're done with her.
You think so? Yeah.
I would imagine that pretty much everyone from this season, other than Antonio and Justina and Roberto, will be gone next year.
Okay.
I think they're not going back to Solaz. They're gonna, literally follow the Yellow Brick Road and move on down to the next whatever part of the story is gonna be. But yeah, I would be very surprised if Paz or Elena or Alba or the mom or Fede or any of those people from the town are back. Because yeah, I mean they really they resolved
Yeah.
all of those storylines to the point where there's they don't there's nothing we really need to learn about. You know what I mean? There's no
Right.
more story we need to know. So
Right.
so yeah, what do you think? I think they're done.
I think it's more likely that they're done, but I think there still exists a possibility. I mean, we already know, spoilers, they're not leaving on that boat, so they're going to be stuck in Spain for at least the amount of time it takes for them to find another way to get the hell out of Spain. And they can't go back to Solaz because, the way things were left, plus, they had the confrontation with Fede down on the waterfront. So they have to do something else. And could they possibly travel back there because it's a place they can hide where nobody knows where they would be? That's a possibility. That was that's the only thing that made me think that we could possibly see them again, was that they made such a big deal of saying nobody knows where we are. Like we're a secret community that nobody knows where we are sort of located. That might be something that they would find useful if they were stuck there and had to deal with, Fede's revenge. I think it's possible, but it's, again, like you said, Occam's razor here is that we'll never see any of them again, except for like the main characters. So
Right. Yeah. I agree. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So we get,
and that'll allow the showrunners to like introduce new characters for next year.
Oh, of course, of course.
Right.
So then we've got all these really great. Let's see here. We get
we kind of glossed over because during the Daryl rescue sequence in the palace, they're cutting back to the Carol stuff too, and so we're kind of getting both stories at the same time. And so Carol and Antonio are there, and then like some of Fede's men start knocking on the door saying we have to search the house, so they sneak out through the cellar, and they meet up with that dude Gustavo, which is the guy who like is out by the gate.
Yeah, he's always
and
by
lets
the
people
gate.
in and out.
Yeah.
And they run into him, and he's like, "Come with me, I will help you." And they're, and you're like, "Oh, okay, this will work out. Like, that guy's a good guy, right?" And then it cuts back to the Daryl stuff, and then when we come back to Solaz, of course, Gustavo has ratted them out and turned them into Fede. And I kind of appreciated this because in last week's episode, when Carol tried to sneak into Fede's office to look for like the drugs for Roberto, there, right before she is able to climb in through the window, she hears someone coming up on the street, so she kind of hides, in the shadows, and we see it's Gustavo, and he's talking with one of the other guards, and he's talking about, well, my I'm looking for, you got any extra medicine, because my wife's, she's ill, she's not doing good.
Yes.
And the guy just kind of has a line like, hey, I'll see what I can do, come back, ask me again later, I'll see what I can turn up, something like that, right? And it's in the background, and it's in Spanish, and you really have to have the closed captioning on to even understand what they're saying, unless you speak Spanish, which I did not, so I was glad I had the closed captioning on. And so then in this episode, he turns in Carol and Antonio, and we see Fede give him, a bunch of boxes of medical stuff, pills or whatever, and he goes, "Hope your wife feels better," or hope use this for your wife or something. And it's just, I was like, okay, that was kind of a neat little tie-in to give us an understanding of why would that dude, rat them out. Why would he turn them in? And it's he likes them, but he likes his wife better, and so I thought that was kind of cool. But anyway, so they're now back in, the custody of Fede, and this is the point where, like up this whole season up to this point, we've been kind of looking at Fede as like, well, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? Because he kind of does some good guy things, but he also kind of is leaning into bad guy territory. You know, we're not sure. We're not really sure, right? We're not sure what. And then it's at this point really where if you had any doubts before, they're gone. Yeah, he's clearly, you know, putting in full bad guy mode, and he, you know, they're like, "What are you gonna do with us?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna let you go." And they cut their ropes, you know, that they're bound up with and stuff. And like Carol and Antonio are looking at each other like, what's going on?
Yeah, it feels like there's a catch here that we haven't discovered yet.
We've not heard the whole story, yeah. And he's like, I'm going to let you go, but I doubt you're going to leave. and so they you know, then when it cuts back to the next scene, they take them out into the courtyard, and you see that Roberto has shown up and has been captured, because he, you know, had to go try and rescue his dad too, and he has been like chained to like the two dudes from Valentina's place, that are both dead and on the ground. So he's chained to them, very similar to what they did to that Primitivo guy from a couple of episodes ago. And they just let Carol and Antonio out without any weapons, and you see like the guards are like bringing the ghouls up in the chains, and then they like pull all the chains out. So now there's like 30-40 ghouls that are converging on them, and you know, again, and or Roberto can't really move because he's tied to the ghouls. And then of course the two dead guys, they revive and get up and start coming after him, you know, and so then everyone's, you know, everyone like in the town are like, they're not out on the street watching, but they're all like watching from their houses, like through their windows
and their balconies.
You know, and so Fede is clearly taking his mom's advice to heart in making a big spectacle about his response to all of this, you know, nonsense in his mind about what's going on, you know. But you know, did he rig the ofrenda to protect his niece? Well, you know what, we're gonna watch these people get eaten instead. That'll be better, you know, that kind of thing. You know, the distraction, right, by doing something grand and you know, crazy, and sort of like, well, let's talk about this rather than, you know, this other thing that I may or may not have done, you know, that kind of thing. So I thought the most interesting part of that scene was that, you know, here's Fede thinking, like, not thinking, but he's basically saying to them, like, you know, I'm letting you guys go, and he was technically letting Roberto go too, like the whole thing, like everybody's free to go, but just they would have no way to leave because they're, you know, Roberto's chained, and they, you know, they just can't, they don't have any weapons. But there's a moment where one of the people who's watching throws she throws a knife down and to help her, and Carol goes to grab it, and one of Fede's guys shoots their gun and hits the knife so that it spins out of the way, and basically is like, we're watching and you can't use any of that. Like, nobody can help you right now. Right. Yeah.
And I think it did a really great job of showing to the townspeople how unfair Fede is being right now about the whole thing, because they don't think that, I mean, Antonio's one thing, he caused a scene and whatever, but what has Roberto done that's so bad? You know, he wanted to save his one true love, you know, whatever. And not a lot of people know a lot about Carol except what they've been told. But I think the big thing in that group is people feel a lot of sympathy for Roberto because they don't understand what he did that was so wrong. And so, and so there's like, sure, it's, you know, Alba who throws the knife, who is obviously sympathetic because she got saved and didn't have to go. And also they, you know, they obviously are sympathetic to the cause because those are the ones that housed Carol and Antonio when they tried to get away. But you could sort of have a sense that they weren't the only ones that would have done that. They threw the knife because they felt that way right away. And I think if they hadn't shot away the knife, someone else might have thrown something else down to help them out. Like, I can't come down and help you, but take this bat or take this piece of wood to knock them unconscious or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it just had this sense of support. I don't know why. Because it's not like anybody said anything or did anything, but it just felt like people would have been supportive if they could have been, but they were just so afraid once he shot the gun and got that knife out of the way, that any sympathy that they had, like, just dried right up, and they wouldn't help out, I'm sure. So they're trying to do this whole thing. They're trying to fight, and, like, out of nowhere, dun dun dun, Daryl shows up. And he starts shooting. Man. I know, and he starts shooting from, like, he's in some, like, upper location somewhere. Same thing. He's in, like, an upper apartment, like, on a balcony, home that's got a balcony that looks out on the courtyard. And they start shooting at him. And I just want to say that I think it's interesting that he chose the one house that still had priceless pieces of, like, pottery and vases were in there, because all of those are gone now because of, like, a couple of stray bullets. So
oh yeah.
So he's shooting, but they're shooting at him, and in the midst of that, like, now people have started directing their attention to the gunfire, and they're forgetting about what's happening down in the square, and then out of nowhere, Justina shows up.
Yes.
And she does this amazing badass, like, walk where she goes straight through, like, she starts to head straight through the ghouls, and she doesn't do anything to save herself.
Nope.
And I don't know that she was banking on someone trying to, like, shoot the ghouls and save her. Like, was she hoping that Fede is, that's her uncle, like, oh my god, Justina, I have to save you, like, which is exactly the reaction that happened. So as she's walking through the ghouls and is calling out her uncle, he's a liar, and all of the things that were said before by Antonio, he forced me to go, it was a punishment, and blah, 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 and there hasn't been a true ofrenda, and he didn't want me to say anything, so he sent me away, and blah, blah, blah. So she's given away all this information, and she really is not caring about the ghouls, but Fede starts, like, he gets a gun, and they start, like, mowing down the ghouls that are there, and it's just this really, I just thought the imagery of Justina, like, walking through all of the ghouls was just amazing. It was really, really cool.
Yeah. And Fede has to know that, once she shows up, that he's done.
Oh God, yeah.
Because the townspeople had heard what Antonio had said, that, he sent her away, because she knew that the thing was rigged and all that, and he's denied all that. No, that's not it at all. Yeah. And now that she's back, it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
That story doesn't work anymore, but yeah, I did think it was badass of her to just sort of, like, well, there's like 10 ghouls on the left and 10 ghouls on the right, and I'm just gonna walk right down the middle.
Yeah.
And then it's great because Daryl starts shooting them, and then all of Fede's men start shooting them, and none of them hit her, which is really amazing. Not caught in the crossfire at all. So
is it amazing, or was it very, very, very expected?
Very, very, very expected.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think what's interesting too about that whole thing is that the scene culminates with, after all the things that Justina says, is Doña Marga shows up next to Fede and she slaps him, and it was hilarious. So basically, he has no power. His people are turning against him, and they decide, they take him to the dungeon, basically, and he's, because they're like, we're not gonna kill him, we're not those people, we need to let him think about what he did. And I'm like, oh, such a Rick way of thinking. And so they tell Gustavo to bring him to the dungeons or whatever, that we'll deal with him later. And that I thought that was an interesting resolution to have them have a real Rick / Negan moment there where they're like, oh, we can't kill him. That makes us the bad people.
If we kill him, we're no better than he is.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like, no, you would be better than he is because he'll be dead and he
Yeah.
can't mess with you anymore. But
yeah. We get and it's great because then, you know, the young lovers are back together again and everybody's happy and they're like, all right, we're out of here, we gotta go, goodbye. They pack a few bags or whatever and they just leave and they're like, we gotta get to the boat because we're leaving tomorrow. That's the plan. And so they're by the boat. They're planning on leaving the next day. They're sitting by the boat and contemplating, okay, we'll be gone tomorrow, whatever. And then it's Carol's idea. She pulls the can out and it's like, okay, we're leaving. Hot dog time?
Mm-hmm. The hot dogs are back, baby.
But I'm curious if you feel like her saying them, eating the hot dogs, was that sort of like Carol was tempting some kind of fate by doing that?
Oh, absolutely. You eat those hot dogs when you're like, sailing into, the East Coast of the United States.
Yeah, when you're close enough that you could swim to the shore if something bad happened. Yeah.
Then you crack open that can. I mean, you're just literally, it's like, you're asking for it now. Okay.
Oh,
yeah. Absolutely tempting fate when she's like, hot dog time. And he's just like, yeah, I guess, why not?
Although technically he was not, he wasn't interested because as, they stated to Valentina, Daryl isn't interested in having any kind of hot dog time with Carol,
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
That's what she said.
Yeah, well, it is what she said when she told Valentina, basically like, ew, no. No, thank you.
No. Oh, I want to sample the local wine.
Yeah, I want the local wine. I don't want the American hot dog. Thank you very much.
That's right.
So then I think we get this really great moment with Daryl that I feel like it would have been a really stereotypical moment, like end of the season, contemplative moment. But they actually, I mentioned in the last episode or the episode before that the flashbacks that Daryl's been having to when he was a kid, we just wanted to know, like, it's not that we didn't like them, but he'd never really seen them before. So there has to be a reason behind them. Like, why are we seeing these now? And they explained it. And I'm so impressed that they did. And it's actually a really interesting explanation. Daryl claims, he's just, we keep seeing this scene over and over and over again. That's basically like a moment where, the shit hit the fan at their, trailer with their family, and Merle is telling him, you gotta, run, get away. And he keeps seeing versions of that scene in his head over and over and over again. That's the flashback we keep getting.
Yep.
And he admits to Carol that he basically is never settled. He's got this really great quote that you included, but the gist of it, is that he never feels fully settled. And he must have been struggling with that while they were, because every fiber of their being has been dedicated to, I got to get home. From the moment he washed up, on shore in, the first season, and we're like, how is he in France? We didn't understand. He's been trying to get home since then. And, we're not even sure timeline wise, like how far in we are, how long has he been in Europe? Like, what's the full timeline? I'm sure someone out there has done it, but he's been spending this entire time trying to get home. But he also made a couple of admissions, when Justina asked, like, what, why did you help us? And he's like, listen, I'm never going to have a happy life. He basically is like, I'm never going to have what you guys have, young love and whatever. So doesn't it make sense to help you guys? Like, that'd be the thing to do, is to help you, and he has also taken like his feelings for Isabel, and he's had a couple of moments where he's sort of treated it like, yeah, that wasn't anything. Like basically saying that his time with Isabel was a mistake, that he shouldn't have gotten as close as he did, blah blah blah. And I think he's been struggling with the idea of, you know, could he stay where he is? Like, would his life have been simpler if he had just been like, listen, let's just stay here in Paris and we'll take care of Laurent and I'll stay with Isabel and da da da. Like, we could just stay here, you know? But he's been struggling with this whole, like, he just can't settle this whole time. And it just felt good to get, like, an explanation for this thing that's been sort of, he's been having these flashbacks since episode 1, I'm pretty much sure, of this season. So we've been asking all season, like, why is he having these flashbacks? And to get this answer and to have it actually kind of make some kind of sense was really interesting. So let's chat a little bit about his actual quote, like what he says to Carol about it. And it's really interesting. And you included it, so let's have you talk about it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. In the flashback, we actually have Michael Rooker, talking. And I looked in the credits. I did not see him credited. So
I didn't either. And it made me really nervous that either they used like a different voice actor who has a voice that's very similar to Rooker, or did they create it with AI? That's
or he just came in and did it as a favor.
Yeah, that's possible.
As well. I mean, yeah, it's because the dude loves to work and he loves the Walking Dead universe. So, yeah. But yeah, I was expecting to see some kind of a special appearance by Michael Rooker, but I did not either. If maybe we missed it. If somebody out there saw it, please let us know. But But we do hear him, which I thought was a nice touch. Or we hear, like you said, someone who sounds like him.
Exactly.
Which I thought was a nice bit. And so he's this is after like the hot dog scene, and they're at the boat, and it's like nighttime, and they're just kind of literally like the next morning they're gonna get up at dawn and sail away. I mean, that's the plan, right? Yeah. So they're like. Yeah, I right now my thumb and my finger are about an eighth of an inch apart, and I'm saying they're this close, people, to leaving. Okay, yeah. They're like right there on the cusp, if you will, and he basically finally kind of explains this flashbacky dream thing that he's been having as to what's going on in his head, and he tells Carol, he goes, my whole life I've been running. Just running and fighting, that's all. And Carol goes, well, you had to just to survive. And then he answers that by going, that's like a bad habit now. Though every time I get somewhere, I just feel like I got to go. It doesn't matter where, I just hear that voice and I got to go. And so immediately I thought, of course, of Peter Gabriel, but whatever, that's me. And then he goes on to say, I'm afraid when we get home, I'm going to hear that again. And then my first thought was, second Daryl spinoff, Dixon Down Under. Yeah, it's coming, people, 2027. But he had mentioned before that quote, too, he told her that, why did I even, go to Maine? Why did I leave, the Commonwealth in the first place? And my thought was, well, you were looking for Rick, but whatever, you're not remembering that. And then he goes, why did I get into the fight with that guy? Why did I have to do that? And then once I got to France, I had a chance to leave and I didn't do it. Why didn't I? I had a chance to go. Remember, that boat was there and he didn't go. And so, he kind of recaps his whole thing of like, I can never be in one place for a long time, right?
Yeah. The thing I thought was great about it too was that it does a great job of explaining why we had all the flashbacks for this season, but it does do a good job of explaining a little bit why Daryl has always been this way. He has always been the one who he's not comfortable being in one place too long. When they were at Herschel's farm, he didn't stay in the house. He stayed outside with a couple other people. I mean, that was practical because there wasn't as much room. You know, when they were in the prison, he was off doing scouting all the time. He didn't want to stay still. You know, once they were in Alexandria, he was out all the time looking for people and scouting and doing whatever. And then, you know, he can't leave well enough alone. Yes, a lot of that towards the end of the series, a lot of that was he just felt like he needed to go out and look for Rick to see, you know, if he could find anything. And so I understand that, but it's also, technically, that's kind of an excuse. He has it baked into him already that he has this reaction that he described anytime he's in a place of comfort or whatever, you know. And it also explains his reaction to, like, he kind of downplays, you know, the feelings he had for Isabel, you know, and I don't think that that's true at all. I thought that they had a really great connection, and I think he's downplaying it because, you know, he's got to have, you know, like, I'm sure people would be like, well, you know, you're upset. Should you be going home? Yeah, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. You know, like, he's got something else to put his focus in on. I thought it was really well done because it explains it, like I said, explains it for this season for him because of the facts we've been seeing, but it also does a great job of giving another layer to a character that we've known for, like, whatever, 15 years, and it rings true with all of how his behaviors have been in the past, where hasn't been able to settle and stay still for any length of time, you know. So I really, really liked that. It was one of my, you know, I loved the ghoul puppets, like, visually, that was amazing. But this, you know, tying up the loose end of his flashbacks was probably my favorite thing of the episode, was that they came through and gave us an explanation, and that it made sense not just for here, but for the main show as well. So I loved it.
Yeah, it was okay. I liked it.
You're like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, so of course Fede shows up because of course his mom goes to feed him and there's nobody there, like, guarding him. And so you show her bringing a plate of food, and the very next thing you see is him showing up at the boat.
Yeah. Well, he tells her, like, he said, look, once they sail away, the town's gonna kill me.
Right.
You know, that they're just, like, letting Justina leave with the idea of, yeah, we're gonna be better people.
Yeah, and he made a whole statement too where he's like, you know, you've already lost a son, are you gonna voluntarily lose another one? You know, which was right. That's rude to make that kind of call.
Hey, you know, he's doing whatever he can to survive. So he's playing every card possible, right? I mean, he has, you know, he's got nothing to lose here. He might as well play out the hand. And so she caves and lets him go. And so, yeah, he shows up with the submachine gun at the boat and, you know, is like, you know, yelling at Daryl, like, you know, you made me lose my job. Yeah. You know, it was really, I'm very angry with you. And they start to scuffle. And of course, you know, the gun goes off and, you know, a couple bullets hit the boat and somehow start a fire inside the boat. And and then you know, then the boat blows up and that's the end of the boat. And so my earlier thought of, yeah, they're never getting on that boat came true. So there you go.
And is that just
Mr. Steve? No.
Is it just me, or was that the lamest way for the boat to be destroyed?
It was terrible. It you know, it's like, why is the boat not, like, out in the bay anchored? Yeah. You know what I mean? Why are you still having it sitting on the blocks, you know, here? It's like,
yeah, it's in, like, dry dock, and why would you do that?
Yeah, well, it's like, don't you think, you know, before you decide to sail across the Atlantic, you should put it in the water and see if it, you know, doesn't sink from your repairs?
Yeah, or that it doesn't, because a lot of what they did was they patched up holes. Want to make sure that those are, you know, are waterproof.
Holding, you know, yeah. You want to make sure the engine works with all the fuel that you put on. I mean, there's so many things. It's just like, what was the plan here? You're just, you know, I don't know. I mean, it was, yeah, I thought, I mean, I think we both knew, and I think everyone watching kind of had this thought of, like, yeah, they're never getting on that boat again out in the water. But this was clearly like the lamest way to destroy the boat that you could have done.
Here's my thing. I agree that the only way to keep them where they are and be able to continue on and have a season 4, because they were, like you said, you're holding your 2 fingers like an eighth of an inch away. They were this close to leaving.
They were.
The only thing you can do is have the boat be destroyed. But why that way? Like, why didn't they have Fede set it on fire himself? Like, you know, that would make more sense contextually, and would also, Fede showing up there, if you think about it, and just that, like, one stray bullet that hits is the only reason for him to be there. Yeah. Because he goes away at the end of it, and there's no, like, he doesn't kill anyone, he doesn't, you know, whatever, so why was he there? Yeah. Why couldn't it have been just, like, a stupid accident that made it happen? You know, like,
or what if the Primitivos came back?
Anything but the way it happened, with like one bullet that went like ping, 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 and we're gonna hit the, you know, the lamp that's in there, and it falls and fire and oh god.
Right.
Yeah.
And that by the way, that's why Fede gets away, because once they like tackle him and get him to the ground, and then they realize, oh crap, the boat's on fire, and so then they all get up and like run and try and get buckets and stuff to put it out. And he, again, does he like pick up the gun and like mow them all down? No, he just does the convenient villain vanish thing.
And how do we feel about when it shows like Carol like going to sleep inside the boat, which is the beginning of the, you know, that scene there. They show her like laying down, and she gets up and leaves, because she looks over and the bed is empty, and that's Daryl is like thinking, and they have the whole conversation. But when she's laying in bed, the thing that I think is also unbelievable is they have like the little lantern there, like the lantern with the flame in it, and it is really close to, they show a bunch of gas cans, and the lamp is fairly close, like close enough where it's like, do you need to have those gas cans there right now?
Right, yeah.
Can't we just keep those away from flame until it's time to go? Because, like, you gotta figure, there's 5 adults here. Like, someone didn't go, that seems smart, to have the gas right next to that lantern. That's, you know, what if it fell? Yeah. Like, what if, you know, I would have believed it more if, like, Carol was like, Daryl, and like if she knocked it over by accident on her way out. Because it didn't matter how it happened. It was just that the boat needed to be destroyed. So the way that it happened didn't really matter. Except if you do something stupid like shoot a gun and it's like ping, 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 ping. Oh, that's, you know, it randomly goes to the inside of the hold of the boat. Like, how does that happen? So yeah, that was the lamest thing in the history of lame. But when it explodes, we then cut to Kadron, and he's walking along a path that is not close to the beach, but close enough where he can see that explosion. So now we know, oh, he's gonna go look and see what that's all about. So one would hope that in like the very first episode of season 4, we get oh my god, we're never gonna make it out of here. Where's our boat? Holy shit, Kadron, where did you come from? Like, I feel like that's the text of like the first, you know, 2 minutes of the script when we get to season 4. So we get the Kadron sees the explosion, but I do have a nit to pick about the Kadron thing. So just hear me out for a hot second. I feel like I wish they hadn't shown Kadron at the beginning of the episode, because I spent the entire episode, which is another reason why I didn't find it as exciting as a season finale could be, because they showed Kadron in the very first scene of the episode, and then they never show him again until the very end. So why did they have to... Because I spent the whole episode anytime they were in a moment of danger, especially at Solaz, because I knew he was closer to like the Solaz del Mar area based on like when he found that the Rubik's Cube as the statue. That's not anywhere near where like Daryl and Paz were at the El Alcazar. That's like miles and miles and miles away. So it's more, I was more expecting every time there was a moment in Solaz where there was some kind of, something happening, like when Daryl is shooting in that final scene. I honestly was like, oh, Kadron's going to show his face. He's going to come in and sweep in and save the day. He's going to do something. And none of it happened. It never happened. And I just wasn't sure why you show the scene of him at the very beginning and then you spend the entire episode going, he's going to show up, right? He's going to show up. And he does show up at the very, very end. But couldn't you have shown, what if he went and grabbed the Rubik's Cube and then they show him walking away, like then they cut away to him walking and it's at night and then they show the explosion. So it's Kadron, he's found where those people are, and then like put it all together in like one sequence. I was so mad that they didn't utilize him more in the episode. I was really, really bummed that they didn't. So what did you think of seeing Kadron again at the end of the episode? Did it bother you? Did it not bother you? What are your thoughts?
It didn't bother me, no. I mean, I kind of figured that, the reason that they showed him in the beginning was just to remind everybody who the hell he was.
Yeah.
That, oh yeah, it's that French guy. Remember him? Yeah, he's got all those tattoos on his face. Yeah, okay, that guy. And after they did that at the beginning, my thought was, and this is, not that I, had any deep insight. It's just I understand how television does stuff. That he would probably show up at the very last minute. He'd come in at the very end, and that would be the end of the episode. That, Kadron is there, whether he does something heroic or he just shows up. Like my original thought once the episode started going was, okay, they're gonna leave Solaz to go to the boat to sail away, and the boat, like the primitive guys have burned it to the ground. It's a big pile of ash.
Yeah.
And so Carol and Daryl are like, well, crap, what do we do now? And then behind them, you hear Kadron go, if you want to live, you have to come with me. And then they turn and there he is, and he takes the hood off, and boom, then it smashes the black. You know what I mean? Something like that. Where Kadron shows up there at the end and goes, I have a way out of here. I have a way to get you back to it. Something like that, which would lead us into season 4 and give us something to like, oh, okay, so Kadron clearly found something, a boat, a helicopter, a water ski, something that can get them back to America. And that's going to be what season 4 is. And so instead, we kind of got this, weird, Johnny Cash Spanish version of Hurt. And we have, everyone kind of staring at the burning boat. And then in the very far distance is Kadron. So he never actually meets them in this episode, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't even know that they're there. He just sees the fire in the distance.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's sort of like, okay, I guess that means he's going to go over there and investigate, but maybe he'll be like, well, I'm not going over there, or who knows, right? I mean, but yeah, that the fact that he never showed up until the very end, I kind of assumed that's what they were going to do. Just again, too much to explain. You'd have all of these Spanish people going, hey, who's this weird French guy? Right. And then you have yet another language barrier because, now do any of the Spanish people speak French? Does he speak Spanish? All that to deal with. So it just makes sense that, nope, you know what? We're not going to bring him in until we've wrapped up all of the storylines we have going on this season. So
yeah, I think, honestly, I think there was a very practical sort of reason why, but I still don't like it, which is he was in the cold open and then they did the credits And then after the credits, they go back to this, the action. And there's usually like a guest starring stuff listed, and he was listed there. So if you didn't show him right then and there, you'd see him in the credits, and it would ruin the surprise if he was at the end of the episode. So I get that. But you could also do it so that he is listed as also starring and is only in the credits at the end, so that you could preserve the secret and have him just show up at the very, very end, so that you have because when I tell you that when I saw him in the cold open and I was like, oh, that's right, Kadron, oh my God, that's great. And then every moment when there was something and I was like, oh, okay, he hasn't shown up yet, but maybe in this scene, he's going to help out Carol. He's going to show up at Solaz and he's going to help out, or he's going to help out there. He's going to help out there. And each time there was a moment of conflict and he did not show up, I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, well, maybe that was the tease, was just the opener and you just saw him and he's in the area. But then they showed the one at the end. And I was like, well, why didn't they just show that one instead of the two of them? You know what I mean? I don't know. Like it was just irritating to me. The whole thing. Ugh. Made me mad.
Okay.
Clearly, I got a bee in my bonnet about the whole thing.
Clearly.
I wasn't hiding it. That's for sure. We sort of reached the end of both of our notes, but is there anything that we sort of hopped over that you want to make sure we cover before we take our break?
When going back to the rescue from the palace, when Daryl rescues Justina and Elena and Elena's little son, and they're trying to make their way out of the palace, they run into a couple of guards, and Daryl kind of takes one out, and then Justina stabs the other one. And I thought it was adorable because Justina, or actually I take it back. It's after they leave and they get back to the lighthouse, because we kind of glossed over that they get to the lighthouse and she goes running in trying to see Roberto, and he comes in after her, and then some of Fetty's men are there, and we find out that they've taken Roberto, and they've shot Valentina, and she's up there, and so she shoots a crossbow at one of them, and then Daryl ends up killing a bunch of them, and he looks at Justina after they're dead, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yes," and then she goes, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Yeah." And it's just this sort of like, why are you asking? And it's like myself watching, I'm like, yeah, why are you asking? He's Daryl. Of course he's fine. What are you, nuts? It's
no kidding.
Show,
his name is in the title. He's fine.
Yeah, he's absolutely fine. So I thought that was funny. And just the way he answered, you were saying that the I coulda line was maybe an ad lib by Norman Reedus. I if this wasn't an ad lib, this might have just been the show just having a little bit of fun with the audience because if you watch it, the way he answers her back with like, yeah, it's sort of like the, of course I'm fine. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? And it wasn't like I am okay. Thanks for asking. No, it's sort of like, what? Stop wasting my time. So that I thought was fun. What else there was? In the very beginning of the episode, we again, I didn't write this down and we didn't really talk about it, but there's a scene between Carol and Roberto, I think at the lighthouse, and he's still kind of upset about oh, my dad lied to me about my mom and he got her killed, and all this, and she kind of tells him like, hey, look, you're too young to remember like the before time. Right? Like he's grown up, and the only world he's ever known is the world of the ghouls. He's never was or if he was alive before the before time, he was too young to remember, that kind of thing. And she points out that like for a lot of people that are older and remembered and were around for the before time, when all this started, there was nothing to live for. You know what I mean? Like our whole world was gone, right? And it was very easy to just kind of give up and not fight. And there's nothing, what is there to live for? That's what she was saying. And then she goes, but despite that, your dad never gave up on you. He always put you first, always had your best interest at heart, always trying to protect you. And I thought it was a real interesting line to give to Roberto, because it does kind of slaps some sense into him about, like, quit whining. Your dad did what he thought was best to protect you. And again, I just go back to, I still don't think it's that big of a deal in the first place about this terrible, terrible secret of, like, the mom died. I get it. It's terrible, but so what? You know what I mean? Move on, Anyway, I like that scene. I thought that was a good little Carol moment. Although I think it's always dangerous when Carol is the voice of reason in any of these things.
Yeah, it's not a good sign.
No, it's not. And then you talked a little bit about there's a bit right when before Daryl and Justina get on the motorcycle to head back to Solaz, and she's like, "Why did you help us? Why did you do all this? And again, Daryl's the don't get involved guy, right? And yet he gets super involved, and he basically tells her, and you paraphrase it, where he goes, "The world's messed up. I felt like something got lost, a chance to really have something." And then I really thought this next line was the one I thought really, you see insight into Daryl, and he goes, "It ain't gonna happen to me."
Yeah.
So he's basically saying, what, the chance for, like, the white picket fence and the dog and the 2.5 kids.
Yep.
Not gonna happen. That's not my thing. I got
not
no
in the
shot
cards
at
for
that.
him. Yeah.
Got no shot at that. Right? Never gonna happen. But then he goes on to say, but for you and Roberto, I wanted you to have that chance. And so that's why he decided to risk his life, and that's why he, basically slaughtered the entire Spanish royal family, and that's why, he did all of that stuff. So, and I thought that whole line was great, but I really, when he said that it ain't gonna happen to me, that was like the most introspective I've ever seen Daryl Dixon on The Walking Dead. It was that moment,
Yeah.
So I really like that too. I thought that was pretty cool.
I mean, if you look at his track record, I mean, he doesn't have, he has been able to have connections with a couple of different women here and there, but it has never worked out well.
No. Let's not kid ourselves. Man pulls, okay? I mean, we're talking like, top level, good looking, zombie apocalypse super babes is the girls that he's gotten. All right.
Yep.
When you look at Connie and you look at Leah and, let's throw Carol in there as a maybe pile. I mean, the guy's done well for himself. So,
yeah.
But yeah, just the whole idea of, I will never have that kind of, Davy Jones twinkle in my eye look at a girl kind of thing, you know what I mean? That kind of like true love, like movie love kind of thing. That I thought was really, really interesting for him to say.
Yeah. That wasn't a really good scene. I liked that. And I liked the other cinematography I loved, I just wanted to mention also, was the journey with Justina and Daryl going back to Solaz del Mar. We're just going back to that area. Tons and tons of these beautiful drone shots.
Oh yeah.
Of him just driving the motorcycle and the two of them together. And there's one point where she puts her arms out and like she's pretending she's flying, and it's just
doing
like
the Titanic.
Just the cinematography of it and the locales that they were driving through. It was just gorgeous. It was just beautifully filmed, and the areas they were driving through were just beautiful. So that was another thing that I liked visually about the episode. So,
I just like when she looks at the motorcycle, she's like, I've never been on one of these before, and his response is, you ever been on a boat?
Because we're gonna do that too.
We're doing that too, kid. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but there's a funny line later when Antonio is, I guess when it's clear he's gonna come, and they're like, do you know anything about sailing? He's like, just what I see in the movies.
Just what I see in the movies, yeah. And Daryl's like, there's no way we can fail, baby.
Success all the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hot dogs for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else we should discuss, or did we?
No, you know what?
I
think that you can crack open the can of hot dogs and we can cook them because we have put this season to bed.
Yeah. I would just say, too, that I think that out of the seasons of Daryl, I would say, in terms of story and story arc, I think out of the three, this has, like, been my least favorite so far, just because even though, like, the whole storyline of the first season was, ooh, magical boy that we need to save, there was still, I don't know, there was a lot more meat on the bone for, I felt like, that season. So I'm glad that they are going to end it with a fourth season, because I feel like then they can really amp it up in the next season. And by no means it doesn't mean that this season was bad. It was not. It was a really good season. I just think like the storyline was a little less meaty than the first two seasons were, and it, you know, young love, which is adorable, but I'm like, really, that's our storyline for the whole season, is we're trying to save young love. I don't know, it felt a little thin to me, but I am, even though that's the case, I'm glad that they are moving into season 4, or they were moving into season 4 knowing this is our final season. We're gonna and we need to stick the landing at the end. So
get Andy Lincoln on the phone now.
Yeah, and you know, it sounds like somebody had a conversation with him about something. Yeah, so this would definitely be the place where you would see him again. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very hopeful for season 4. I'm glad, like I said, that they knew when they went into production for season 4 that they knew they were going to be finished and that they needed to wrap up the story so that there's no sort of dangling loose ends. But I'm very hopeful. This was, like I said, I felt like it was a good season. It wasn't the best of the 3, but it was still a good season. And I think if they can just build off of that, they've got a real opportunity to have next season be really, really great. Yeah. How about you? How are you feeling with the season 3 being finished, and like now we're gonna have to wait a little bit, but how do you feel the show is sort of situated for a season 4?
Yeah, very similar. You know, my initial, thought about season 4 is that it'll be let's assume it's 7 episodes again, and I have not heard at all what the length is of it, but let's just go with 7 just for this discussion. Sure. It'll be 6 episodes of Daryl and Carol hijinks on the continent, and then the 7th episode, either all of it or half of it will be a montage of them returning home, however they do it, and you'll get this last, 1 minute shot of them like stepping off the boat on the dock or landing the plane or whatever, and there'll be Rick and maybe even Michonne will be there too, and they'll be this embrace, and then it'll fade to black. I mean, it'll be the reunion will be great, but it's going to be way less than we want.
Yeah. Now here's my thing. The reunion I want is for Daryl and Carol to see Rick and Michonne. But the one that we don't necessarily need, do you think we'll see Laurent and the I forget the character's name, but the dude who was the pilot? Do you think we will see those two guys again?
Oh yeah, they'll be back. Yeah, okay. Definitely the kid will. There's no doubt about that. So
okay,
yeah,
all right.
And you know what, the kid might even come back during the season. Like, we might find out that like the plane had some like problem. I had to turn around and land. I mean, it could be that too.
Or maybe on their way there, they stop off in like Greenland. Mm-hmm. And they run into the pilot and Laurent are stuck in Greenland with those crazy ladies again.
The crazy ladies, yeah. Maybe. That could be. They could be having babies in Greenland. Who knows?
Greenland babies, gross.
Yeah, the only other thing I just thought of is something else I didn't mention, and that is normally there's like a 4 or 5 minute little featurette at the end on AMC Plus, and what they did for this episode is they released like a 42-minute long behind the scenes, but it's for the whole season. And I started to watch it, and I got about 10 minutes in, and I'm just like, how long is this thing? And then I flipped up, and I'm like, oh my God, it's 42 minutes. And so I didn't finish it yet.
Yeah.
And it covers all the episodes, and you get a lot more of the behind the scenes interview stuff with a lot of the guest stars and a lot of the Spanish actors, a lot of the other people that are in it. So if you want to kind of get I think a more cohesive picture or look at the making of the show and some of the decisions that went into the show, and of course all of the ways they made Spain look like England and all of that, and all of Greg Nicotero's effects and everything. It's a really, an interesting thing. It's like 42 minutes, so it's not just a couple minutes of your time, but
right.
I would highly recommend you check it out, because like I said, I watched about 10 minutes. It was really interesting, but I'm like, they're showing stuff from like episode 1, and I'm just like, why are they talking about episode 1 during the season finale? And then it just didn't end, and I'm just like, what's going on? But anyway, it's on the streaming site. It's on AMC Plus. I would imagine it'll be available in other places as well, but I do not know for sure, if it'll be like on YouTube or on the website or whatever. But you should definitely look for it if you're interested, because it does look like it has a lot of really great, like I said, behind the scenes bits and interviews and so on. So just check it out.
All right. So as per usual, folks, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback we received for the episode and what's coming up next on the podcast.
So please, everyone, stick around, because we will be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the best of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and apocalyptic entertainment. Aim for the Head, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Hey there, folks. We are back. We're going to get jumped right into our listener feedback that we received for episode 7 for the season finale. So let's get started off with our always reliable, always writes in, always sends a feedback. Of course, we're talking Erica Price, folks. So Erica wrote into us via the Facebook, as per usual. Mm-hmm. And she wrote us a novel. Oh, I'm kidding. It's a couple of paragraphs, folks. I'm just kidding. So she wrote in, and these are her thoughts on episode 7. She says, Cadron! No effing way! I didn't think Antonio would get away with publicly scolding Fede. Very handy for Paz and Daryl to be assigned a work detail that requires masks.
Yeah, see again, it was too easy.
Yeah, some stuff a little too easy. Okay, this marionette show using walkers as puppets is pretty hilarious. We've never seen that before. Nice to see the showrunners still have creativity. Wow, the dresses on the tributes are stunning. The other gals up for the ofrenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This bit with Antonio makes no sense. If Fede wants to kill him, why leave him there unattended?
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad Paz has her revenge. Daryl busts in on Justina and her new beau like he knew exactly where they were. This place is huge, but I guess we need to keep the story, moving along.
Moving along, people. We have no time.
No time. I'm surprised Antonio trusted this guard to help them. Turns out to have been a wrong choice. Damn you, Gustavo.
Gustavo, you rat bastard.
Rat bastard. How does Daryl navigate himself back to the lighthouse? No maps? In the dark? These are some really cool drone shots, though, yes, of the journey back on the motorcycle. Unfortunately, AMC used a screenshot of this scene of Daryl and Justina every time I paused the episode. Yes, I'm not surprised. That's probably the same photo that they released in advance. There's always, like, a bunch of photos from the episode that gets released, and 9 times out of 10, you're just like, oh, I wonder what's happening here, but seeing Justina in regular clothes and she's with Daryl and they're on a motorcycle.
And they're outside.
Kind of tells you that they succeeded.
You think?
So she says they used a screenshot of this scene of Daryl and Justina every time I pause the episode, effectively spoiling the escape. Right there with you. Frankly, Fede's mom sees the light and, finally, Fede's mom sees the light and gives it to him good. Maybe his punishment should be his mom spanking him in the town square once daily? Hot dogs! Exclamation points! But wait, did they eat them? We never really saw it. So now we understand the young Merle and Daryl flashback. Hopefully his restless heart will settle soon. How did Fede get out? I'm thinking his mom had something to do with it. Well, there goes the boat. And now Kadron has caught up with them, but I really don't understand how. They took a boat, no one interacted with them, and lived to tell about it. Will he be friend or foe next season? I really liked this season. There were a few clunky moments, like when Daryl forgets he should clear a room or exercise caution in narrow alleys, but in general the story was entertaining and the new characters were believable, and they had us rooting for them. For the final season, I really want them to get back home. I want them to reunite with Rick and Michonne in the Commonwealth, and maybe Connie and Daryl can rekindle their friendship? Question mark. Thanks for your coverage. It's been fun hearing your thoughts. Well, thank you for always sending in feedback. We always appreciate it, Erica. There's one thing I want to make sure is clear about, because you brought up the thing about Kadron finding them, considering when they last saw him, they were in the Channel. And if you look at any map, Paris is near the real northern part of France. And the Channel goes from London underneath the water and lets out in Paris. So, or near there, as it were.
No, by the coast. Yeah. Paris is not really by the coast, but yeah.
But then you'd have to, in order to travel to the area where they are, or near where they are, you'd have to travel south through almost the entire length of France, and then travel part of the way into Spain.
And you have to cross the Pyrenees Mountains.
Right, right. So there's a lot of traveling that's happening there, and I understand. And how would he happen upon them? I think your reasoning has to be, and I easily went there and was able to explain it away. Kadron has always been clear that he is a religious man. And where they are is right along that, I looked it up. It's the pilgrimage road, the Way of St. James, the Camino de Santiago, is where they're right along that path. And there are parts of that path, which, if you look it up, it's obviously mainly in Spain, but there are like sort of fingers of that path that do stretch into France.
Does the rain fall only on the plain?
But mainly on the plain in Spain.
Okay.
So I think it's perfectly acceptable if Kadron wasn't even looking for them. The fact that he made it to that statue, and he went up to, offer up a prayer or something before he even saw the Rubik's Cube, I think he was on a journey. I think what happened to him in the Channel, that guano episode with him and seeing his brother, I think that changed him a little bit. And I think that he was on a religious journey because that's where he was on this journey. And that's the best explanation, I think, like in my heart and in my head, where how Kadron would have found them along this area, because he could definitely believably get involved in following this way of St. James as sort of a path of, like, maybe some sort of religious or spiritual journey that he was on. So I'm okay with him finding, trust me, the show has done thinner things for people to find each other on the other side of the world, So I think the fact that they did a really good job in season 2 of setting up Kadron in season 1 and season 2, of setting up Kadron as a very religious man. And that was his motivation for all of the things that he did for Genet and all of that stuff. So I find it very believable that the first time we see him in Spain is that he's approaching a religious statue, and that he appears to have been following that religious sort of pilgrimage way in some way. So that, to me, that's how I explained it away in my head. But I completely understand if that didn't jibe with you, or if there wasn't enough information, maybe it just, there wasn't enough for you to be able to make that leap, or for you to even think that that's a thing. You know what I mean? I totally get it. That worked for me, but may have not worked for others. So I totally get it, because without knowing if Kadron is a religious person or not, that he would happen upon them so far away from where the channel is. I mean, if you look at a map, it's ridiculous. So far away from the channel, and that he would happen upon exactly where they are, is so ridiculous. So I totally get it. But yeah, just wanted to address the way I felt about that. So I'm not sure if everybody else saw it and felt that way, but that's what I felt and saw when I saw that he had showed back up again. So yeah.
Yeah, I just thought, wizards, make your own damn movie. Shut up.
Exactly. So thanks for writing in, Erica. We loved having all your feedback every week. We look forward to hearing from you. At least during Fallout, I would assume. So we hope to be hearing from you again soon as we move forward to cover some other things in the next coming weeks and months. So thanks again, Erica. We look forward to chatting with you soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Erica. Would love your feedback every week.
Always.
Thank you so much. All right. So we had another piece of feedback, and this is from another one of our amazing listener/contributors, and that, of course, is Karen. I'm not related to Lauren Cohen. And this came in also via the Facebook, and this was kind of dicey. She waited to the penultimate moment to send it in. But she starts off by going, "I know I'm right under the wire, so I'll make it quick."
It was very, very close.
It was very close, but you made it. So congratulations, Karen. So she goes, "The boat caught on fire? Are you serious?" Yeah, I know. Color me shocked. There's no communication yet. Everyone just knows where to go and who's going to be there? Really? Carol just looks tired in every scene. Where does he keep filling that giant gas can? It's
For sure.
endless. Yeah, so we see Daryl refilling the motorcycle at one point, and it's like, man, that kerosene can is really full. She goes, "I don't like that Betty's mom let him out knowing he's going to go kill people, and I just don't like that guy." Yeah, me too. I know. I'm having a hard time with this show. Hopefully your podcast can help me out. Cheers. So, well, hopefully we did. Hopefully we were able to right some of the wrongs going on in your mind about this show, and you'll be fully on board for season 4, Daryl Dixon Down Under. So.
Daryl, that's not a knife. Now that's a knife, Dixon.
That's right. That's not a crossbow. This is a crossbow.
Oh yeah. I hope we helped turn you around a little bit. Like I said earlier, this isn't my favorite of the 3 seasons, but I still think it was a good season. I think there was good content. It's always good to have Daryl and Carol together. Sometimes they're like the Bobbsey twins, for crying out loud, with just being, Keystone Cops bumbling stuff. But still, there's a lot of history there, so I feel like the characters are always gonna have chemistry, and some of the new characters in this season I felt like were really cool. So hopefully you can sort of hang on to some of that stuff and see it through, and let's cross our fingers that they stick the landing for season 4. That's the big hope.
That is what we're gonna do. That is what we're gonna do.
So thanks for writing in, Karen. Hopefully we'll hear from you again soon as we cover other things in the coming weeks and months. Yeah. So speaking of covering other things, we are going to take a week off, people, because we're tired, man.
Think about it. We've been going nonstop. I mean, I know there was a few weeks in there where it was vacation, but we made up for it with double episodes.
Yeah,
that took
which
forever.
are the roughest. They're the worst.
But yeah, we've been going nonstop since the middle of August, the end of July.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long. We've been at the grindstone
earlier
here,
than that,
so,
because
yeah.
we covered Dead City, which came in May or June. We did Dead City, then we covered Fallout after that, and that led us all the way into
Daryl.
Daryl, we ended up having to do the double up for the start, because we were both off that week of
it was Labor Day
or something like that when it premiered. So we've been going for almost the whole summer, so we're gonna take next week off because we're tired. And then when we come back, we've been talking about it for weeks. We are definitely covering Fallout when we get. But next episode. Oh yeah. Are we covering Jaws? Oh yeah, we are.
Yes, we're covering Jaws.
So I'm very excited to cover a movie that is exactly the same age as me, because Jaws turned 50 this year, and so did I. So it's the 50.
I look forward to turning 50 in the very far future.
It'll happen, 5 or 6 years ago. So we are.
Hello.
So we are looking in 2 weeks from today. We're going to be discussing Jaws, 1975 Jaws, clearly. The OG.
Wait, we're not doing Jaws: The Revenge?
Not Jaws. What was the one that was in 3D? Was that 4? Oh,
Jaws 3
in
Jaws
3D.
3.
Yes, terrible.
That's right. With Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr.
So bad. A case can be made a little bit for Jaws 2, but Jaws 3 is just awful.
Well, the thing about Jaws 2 that is so horrifying is that it's 5 years later, and Murray Hamilton is still the mayor of that town.
They elected that guy again, folks.
Again after that, yes.
So, the worst. So we're going to be covering the OG. We're very excited to talk about it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. We did, of course, go and watch the re-release in the theater this year, so we saw it on the big screen. Which was so much fun. But
we met Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, we have met Richard Dreyfuss. And he's delightful, So we're going to have plenty to talk about with the movie, and we'll put out some social media posts as we get closer. But we're going to, like I said, we're taking the next week off, so probably won't be as many social media posts next week. But look forward in about a week and a half or so, you'll start seeing us reach out for thoughts. I'm pretty sure that it's on Netflix right now, because I was doing some Netflix stuff over the weekend, and I'm pretty sure I saw it in the new to Netflix section. So either Netflix or Prime. I can't remember, because I was on my downstairs TV, and that I only have a couple of options on that smart TV, because it's an old, not very smart TV. So I only can do Prime or Netflix. So it's one of the two. So if you need to rewatch it, do it, because when is that ever a bad thing? But if you've seen it enough times where you don't need to rewatch it, kind of like us, then send your feedback in, and you can start now if you really want to. Send us an email if you want to, if you don't want to wait for the social media posts. But But yeah, I'll start posting some stuff in about like a week and a half. And if you guys want to reach out and leave your thoughts, we'd love to hear. It's such a classic movie. We're gonna have plenty to talk about, lots of trivia, lots of facts for the the making of the movie, et cetera, et cetera. So we're very, very excited to cover it. Very excited. So there's that. Speaking of social media, so continuing that, we've been doing the 31 Days of Horror. And it's been continuing. There's been lots and lots of really great interaction. I'm throwing out all my stupid ideas, and at every turn, most people, Joe, have smarter ideas for like movies to pick for the categories. But what can I say? My horror knowledge is not nearly as large as some others. So I throw out a stupid idea, and then everybody puts in these other really great ideas. But check us out on social media and see if you've got some suggestions of things that follow the different categories that we are posting about every day during the month of October for the 31 Days of Horror Challenge. So keep an eye out for that. Also, we wanted to mention again, I shared on our Facebook feed some information about the play that we were talking about last week that is written by our friend of the podcast, Tim Griffin, and also sound designed by our other friend of the podcast, Joe Griffin. And they had their...
Not related.
So definitely related.
No, they are. They're brothers, absolutely.
The show premiered this weekend. I think it was Saturday or Sunday night.
On
so Saturday night.
Yep, Saturday.
And they've been getting great reviews so far. So if it's a subject you're interested in, then feel free. We've got information on our Facebook page that we shared the link to City Lit Theater, which is where the show is taking place. So if you're in the Chicago area and you're looking to watch some great theater about a little bit about like Dracula, then
Dracula. Yeah, the show is called Strange Cargo: The Doom of the Demeter, and it deals with the trip that Dracula takes from Transylvania to London to England on this cargo ship called the Demeter. And in the Bram Stoker novel, it is very, very brief and glossed over as to what happens on this trip. But it's epic and horrific because the crew is slowly murdered one by one, and bad things happen, and it's awful and terrifying. And so Tim has written a much more fleshed out version and kind of trying to answer some of those questions. And so it started like you said, the premiere was this past Saturday the 18th, and it runs through November 23rd. So basically it runs for about a month here in the Chicago area, and it's citylit.org to get all of your tickets and showtime information. And so, like you said, if you're going to be around and you love horror and you're want to see it in a different way, and that is live on stage, here's your opportunity.
Yeah, lots of opportunities to watch it in the coming month, so that's fantastic. So we're glad they're getting good reviews so far from folks, lots of good buzz about it. So congrats to Tim and Joe on a great opening, and we hope that things stay strong all through the end of November for you guys. So that sounds great. Just a couple of show premieres we want to get through. We had already been talking about a couple of other shows, but Steve reminded me, if you folks are lovers of the It franchise or Stephen King, etc., that there's also the Welcome to Derry does premiere this coming Sunday on HBO and HBO Max. So if that's something you're interested in, that is happening soon. So check it out. And then also we've discussed previously that Stranger Things is coming back as well. I've done it before and I can do it again. I have challenged myself to do a full rewatch before we get to the first premiere date, which is the 26th of November, just like the day before or the day of Thanksgiving. And it's like the first 3 episodes, the first 3 volumes are released that day. So I put something out on social media where I was like, I've got 39 days and 30 hours of television to make it through. So can I make it?
Of course you can.
I wrote that earlier in the day on Sunday, and I proceeded to then watch the entirety of season 1. I'm already one season down in 24 hours. So I'm
You're going to be able to watch it twice.
No kidding. But I'm also in the midst of doing like a rewatch of Yellowstone, so I think I'm going to flip-flop back and forth. So I'm going to go back to Yellowstone, and when I finish a season out, then I'm going to go back to Stranger Things, and then da-da-da. Because I don't want to abandon either. So that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to go back and forth between, family drama on a ranch in Montana and also family drama in, Hawkins, Indiana in 1985. So yeah, so Stranger Things is coming back. The first episode's premiere on the 26th of November, as I said, and then the next batch on Christmas Day, and then the next batch on New Year's Eve. So
it's like every major holiday, Stranger Things will be available coming up.
It's cool because you should have, most people, unless you work retail, should have at least a little bit of time off around those days. So they have basically given you a gift of, if you have to visit with your family and you're not interested in spending a lot of social time with them, then just say, oh, I'm really tired, or I have a headache, and you can go to bed and bring your phone with you and, binge all the episodes while you're home for Thanksgiving.
I like
it. So I'm just giving you tips, people. Giving you tips. So Stranger Things has those 3 different release dates, and then also we have discussed at length that Fallout Season 2 will premiere on the 17th of December. So we are super excited about that one. Absolutely.
Yep.
So I've got nothing else to discuss. Anything else we should bring up before we wrap it up?
No, I think we've babbled on long enough.
Definitely babbled on long enough. So that's going to do it for us this week, folks. Thanks so much for following along while we covered season 3 of Daryl. We're excited to see what happens for season 4. That'll probably be sometime in a year or so. And again, as a reminder, we're going to take next week off, and then we'll be back with our coverage of the movie Jaws. Look for social media posts to come. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because those body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
It's too much text. I'm too tired.
Too tired. Oh no, you tired. Oh no, you're tired.